There we go. Hello everyone and welcome to another Tinfoil Spotlight. How's everyone doing? Hope you've had a good couple of days. Again, sorry I haven't been able to stream as much this first half of the month, but as I said on a previous video, I have like the next week off from work, so I can just stream pretty much every day. Monday I won't be because I have electrolysis and my consult for an orchiectomy on Monday. But other than that, I am all yours. So very exciting. We're going to get to do some longer streams over the next week or so. Probably a normal length stream today just based on the content, but should be good. I see we're on a hype train, 5% to level 2. Thank you for that. MF Baby Cakes with 200 bits says, recently Polte's throwing stones from a glass house by going after New York Attorney General Lolita James for financial misrepresentation. The irony is nauseating. On the bright side, I wrote a cultural critique on his BBBYQ scam for class, got 100%, and now 30 more people know about the scam and how he got into government without facing consequences. Oh, nice. That's interesting. Yeah, he's a big piece of shit. He works for Trump. Surprise. Captain Rachel, thanks for 58 months with subscribing on Twitch. Says maybe Hannah's stream will allow me to break through my brain's weirdness and get started on packaging, or rather packing, so I'm ready to move into my house as soon as the paperwork is finished. Well, I hope it does, and congrats again on the house. Innocuous Blonde, thanks for 42 months, says, oh hey, it's my answer to life, the universe, and everything Hanniversary. Hell yeah, 42. I like that book. I need to reread that. Broha, thanks for 43 months with Prime. Danny Boy asks, Velma, where have you been? I've been solving mysteries with the gang, obviously. Hey Amber, how's it going? Terradona, thanks for 100 bits, 11% to level 2 on the hype train. If you want to help with the hype train, you can always gift subs, subscribe yourself, or use bits. Remember, in 3 days on the 20th, we are doing the 420 tinfoil stream, so that should be fun. And tomorrow we are doing the YouTube member and patron only stream. I had to push that back because the roofers came to finish up. So that sucked that we didn't get to do that last Sunday like we had planned. But on the bright side, the ceiling does appear fixed. It's not been leaking anymore. My Blu-rays are safe. So that's good. I think that's it. If you're on YouTube, like the stream. Other than that, today we have an interesting topic. It is reptilians. This is a conspiracy, quote-unquote, documentary that's all about missing persons cases and David Icke and other conspiracy theorists trying to link them to reptilians. So it should be fun. It's about an hour and a half. We'll pause, so I'm sure we'll add time on to that. But yeah, should be interesting. I've not seen this yet, so I don't know how this is, but I don't know. Are reptilians responsible for David Icke's haircut? Is his barber sabotaging him? Ultra Undying says, Hannah, can I have a blessing for finding a new doctor? By the way, I got antibiotics. Nice! Blessings towards you and your new doctor. I hope they're better than previous ones. The mantis people did his hair. That explains they used the little uneven, like, pincers. Yeah, pincers, not good for that. Not good for that. No, David Icke sucks big time. For those who don't know who David Icke is, he helped popularize the reptilian conspiracy thing. He's a former famous athlete in the UK who sometime in like the 80s, early 90s ended up switching to this like scam reptilian thing. Reptilians, by the way, thinly veiled anti-Semitism. It usually ends up once you dig in with these people. They think it's Jewish people, basically, are secretly reptilians. So it's an unfortunate anti-Semitic trope being disguised as a sci-fi trope, which sucks. 45 seconds left on the hype train. But I said reptilians were real and that I'm their queen. I don't think I ever said queen. I think I said I'm a reptilian. I think you're projecting the queen bit. Carpcosian, thanks for 23 months, says my Prime sub was available. Hell yeah. Very nice. David Icke is a real piece of crap, just like Graham Hancock. Remind me who Graham Hancock is again? Guess I don't recall. Nemesaur, thanks for gifting 10 tier 1 subs and saving the hype train. Hell yeah, thank you, Nemesaur. You are always and forever the MVP of gift subs. But I'm not Jewish, as far as you know. I've never talked about my ethnicity. Newbie Faye, thanks for 100 bits. Doo-doo-doo. Sci-fi used to justify bigotry isn't cool. You know what? Hot take. Bigotry, not cool. Now you know. That's the Sonic Says for the day. Spokane has a GoFundMe to share. Can he? Absolutely. Sorry I didn't see him asking for that if I missed that. Joan Spoon with 100 bits says, loves me some reptiles. Who doesn't? I guess a lot of people. A lot of people are afraid of reptiles. I'm not. I don't get the snake fear. I get insect fear. I'm not a big fan of insects, especially like arachnids, spiders, scorpions, stuff like that. Reptiles are fine, though. I think snakes are cute. Graham Hancock is the guy with the Netflix series claiming the existence of some pre-Ice Age civilization. Is he doing Tartaria? Is he, like, rewrapping Tartaria or something? You're terrified of arachnids? I think that's justifiable. They're creepy. I don't like them. Even crabs are kind of creepy. The on-screen... I gotta fix that thing. Because I turned it off for the noise, but you did an on-screen celebration that I don't think we saw because I turned the thing off, and I apologize. Crabs are yummy. I would agree with that. They are unfortunately delicious sea spiders. But, you know, it is what it is. They're the most delicious bottom feeders out there. They're bottom feeders because when I eat them, they feed me. Crabs are spiders. They look like it. Mr. Blast, thanks for gifting a sub. Much appreciated. Hancock predates the Tartaria stuff? Really? I'm gonna have to get into that. I'm gonna have to look into that. I also found someone that I want to look into more and maybe do a kind of a tinfoil spotlight and a sovereign citizen spotlight. So I'm not sure what category it's gonna go under. But it's basically a mom who was doing Munchausen's by proxy on her kid, allegedly, I'll say for legal reasons. She was convicted of some stuff, but I don't know if she was convicted of that specifically. But anyway, she had her kid taken away because of allegations of Munchausen's by proxy. And, she ended up getting into the QAnon stuff, adopting a lot of the sovereign citizen stuff, and concocted a plan to kidnap her kid back from the foster home at gunpoint. Luckily, it didn't come to that. Her daughter got wind of the plan. And this was more than, like, they were just talking about it. Like, they had, like, put this plan into motion, and her daughter, who was an adult daughter, because she had another adult daughter, had heard about this, and luckily reported her, and she was arrested and convicted for that. Because, oh boy, not good. You watched a video about that yesterday? We probably watched the same video, because I'd not heard of her. Somehow. I don't know how I hadn't heard about her. But she was on a lot of, like, shows. Like, QAnon and Sovereign Citizen shows, like, on BitChute and Rumble, where they were just telling her side of the story. And it's so surreal going to these old videos from, like, years ago, where you know she's lying. And she's trying to say, oh yeah, my kid has this seizure disorder, and the kid does not have a seizure disorder. She was inducing that in the kid, allegedly, for Munchausen's by proxy, because as soon as the kid got taken, the kid was fine. Like, genuine fucked up stuff. So disturbing to listen to her just lie. Crazy. Anyway, that's a stream for the future. We'll probably cover some of that in the next week. So I guess that's a preview of that. Let's see. 11% to level 5 on the hype train. Whenever you think of crazy kidnappers, you think of Kim Blandino and that crazy lady Team Skeptic covered? I guess I don't recall that. Was that the person who sued him? Or am I thinking of someone else? Not sure. You always think of Gypsy Rose when you hear about the Munchausen's by proxy. Yeah, she has an interesting story. Really weird stuff. I know she's had a rough time of it since she got out of jail, and who can blame her? Weird situation all around. Why was that censored? Because her first name happens to also be a not-so-up-to-date term for Romani people. Like, I think it's fine in the case to say her name, because it is her name, but, like, not great, you know? Kind of the same reason, like, I don't want to talk about, what's his name? Lovecraft's cat, you know? I don't know. Maybe not to that degree, but still. Lindsay Dineski, that's her name? There we go. Weird that she became, like, a public figure. Oh, yeah. Very Black Mirror-y, very creepy and bizarre. How she's become a focus of, like, drama channels on YouTube. Like, oh my god, just disturbing. Truly, we live in a society. Minute left on the hype train, and then we will get into the documentary. A good doc about crazy kidnappers is Tabloid, about this woman, Joyce McKinney, who kidnapped a Mormon missionary but swears it was consensual and the Mormon church brainwashed him. Interesting. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. Stone Corbell, thanks for gifting a sub. Much, much appreciated. 30 seconds left on the hype train. We do an Ike, we are Orion, or at least he is in this documentary. I don't think he made this, I think he is just one of the talking heads. I did choose to show him as the opening screen here, though, because he is pretty synonymous with the reptilian conspiracies, so. It could be worse, we could be in a society with Jared Leto's Joker. Remember that time in the Snyder Cut, he said to Batman he was going to give him a reach around? That's canon. That happened in a real Batman movie. Thank you for the hype train, everyone. Much appreciated. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the documentary. I'll turn this music off. We'll get into it. Ooh, let's see what emote I got from the hype train. What is that? Someone eating a chicken wing or a chicken leg? That's mid. That's a mid emote. I'm gonna be honest. I'll still share it, but I think that's a mid emote. I don't even know the context in which I would use that. But sure, why not? Anyway, let's get into it. This documentary, again, the term is being used quite loosely here. It's put together by conspiracy theorists, so it's bullshit. It's called The Bizarre Link Between Reptilian Aliens and Missing Persons Cases. Let's get into it.
Obviously, it wouldn't come out of the mainstream.
Oops, gotta go back, sorry. The views expressed in this film are not necessarily the views of Reality Entertainment, nor any of its subsidiaries and any other person involved in the making and distribution of this film. Reality Entertainment does not warrant the accuracy, reliability, completeness of those views or statements, and does not accept any legal liability whatsoever arising from any reliance on the views, statements, and subject matter of this film. So they're real confident about the contents of this documentary.
Hello, no one is available to take your...
Can't say that, Spokane Dog Man. I know you're saying it as an example, but still don't type it.
call. Please leave a message after the tone.
John, Mike Donovan here. I want you to stop working on the missing persons story. I got a call from the CPS and a bunch of other organizations looking to sue us if we print. Just let it go, John. I'll talk to you later.
Appreciate the conspiracy film company called Reality. That's probably not accidental. Conspiracy theorists don't usually think about themselves as conspiracy theorists most of the time. They self-describe as truthers. To them, they're not believing in just crazy conspiracies. They're on to the truth.
This is the last time, John. If I hear you're still working on that story, you're out of here.
ominous music means that this is legitimate, by the way. Don't know if you know that, but if you just use random music and put it over, like, footage and, like, stuff that looks like a detective case from a movie, that means you're legitimate.
I warned you, John. Look,
Overthought, thanks for gifting a sub to Halloween Town.
I'm sorry. I gotta let you go. Be careful, John.
I always find it funny when people sort of, like, do the red string board thing and try to look legitimate. Do they not remember that in, like, A Beautiful Mind, when he had the room full of the strings and stuff, that was indicative that he had schizophrenia? Sorry, spoilers for A Beautiful Mind, which is a great movie that I really enjoy, but, like, the character, while he was a genius, also mentally unwell. Like, it wasn't supposed to show that he's brilliant in that scene. That scene is, oh, he needs help. Ugh.
In the United States, close to 1 million missing person reports are filed every year. Whilst many of those reports are filed as protocol, quickly resolved and closed down, a worrying percentage of those are never even investigated.
The vast majority of missing persons cases in terms of children are non-custodial parental kidnappings. So, like, a parent that doesn't have custody of a child, taking the child and trying to abscond with them, or another family member doing the same.
As I began my investigation, it quickly became apparent that there was a disturbing nature to these disappearances. And as I pursued each lead, I found myself embroiled in something I could never have expected. Little did I know that I would be contacted by a very covert, secretive individual who would blow the lid off what many of us believe to be the truth about our world. As you are reading this, you will not yet understand the
I like that he tries to bolster his argument by saying many people believe this. Many people believe this. It's not just me. This isn't just my claim. Many people, so you gotta take it seriously.
very taboo nature of what we're dealing with.
The reptilian taboo. I love when conspiracy theorists try to say that, like, people just aren't ready, and it's just, like, the most batshit thing. Not that people aren't ready, it's that your idea is bad. People are saying, everyone is saying, people are saying the reptilians, they say, Donald, all these reptilians are taking our children and putting them in the chicken nuggets. And I tell them, how else am I supposed to get my chicken nuggets?
The alternative media, as it's called, which is where a film like this would come out of. Obviously, it wouldn't come out of the mainstream. And what's developed over the years that this alternative media has come into being, what's developed is the alternative mainstream. And
Brian Cooper says, just looked up sorry, all over my mouth today. I just looked up reptilian taboo online and all I found was scaly porn. Lucky you. Just keep me up on the other monitor so I still get the view.
almost everyone has a here and no further point. And just because you are aware that there's a banking scam and a political scam and engineered wars doesn't mean...
Have I ever been to our escaping prison planet? No. Is it a subreddit full of, like, people who think that the planet's a prison? Because there's some subreddits that are full of people with, like, very specific delusions. There's a whole subreddit for time travel that I found just because I'm into, like, the fictional concept of time travel. Like, you guys know I'm into time travel film or books or stories, you know, whatever. So I just thought it would be a subreddit for, like, you know, discussing fictional time travel stories or recommendations. No, that subreddit is full of actual mentally ill people that think they're developing time machines. Like, it's really interesting. It's sad seeing as well, but you guys know I just find it fascinating reading people's delusions or seeing people's delusions. Don't know why. William Shakespeare, thanks for 27 months, says, David Icke is here for my third sub baby, aren't I lucky? This baby's name is going to be Draconis Ike. We did it.
Your mind is open to the deep, deep, deep in the rabbit hole areas that will explain where all that's actually ultimately coming from. You will have people who will go so far, but then their belief system, their sense of credulity, will say here and no further.
Well, I think it's like a kind of human archetype. Unless you're a small boy with frogs in your pocket, people don't like toads or snakes or crocodiles or alligators.
Again, I don't think that's true of many people, but not everyone has a fear of reptiles. I don't want to get near a crocodile or an alligator because, you know, they're wild animals and predators that might attack me, but it's not a visceral thing. It's just you know, they're dangerous. If there's just like a snake or whatever that's like not a thing. Actually, I'll bring this up. People aren't born with like a fear of snakes. It's instilled in them. Babies with snakes. They've done videos on this just because it's funny, and you can see, like, you can just have babies playing with snakes. Don't worry, by the way, these snakes are not dangerous. There's people all around. These babies are not in danger. But anyway, like, the idea that everyone has this sort of, like, innate, inborn fear of reptiles is just not true. A lot of it, especially in areas like Australia, which that video is from, by the way, is socially induced. If you're a kid in Australia and you're near a snake or something, and your parents freak out because Australia has a large amount of venomous snakes, when you're a kid, it's gonna, like, alert to you, oh, this is dangerous. You're more likely to instill, like, fear in someone. And in that case, that's not even a bad fear. You know, it's a reasonable fear based on actual danger. You know, don't get near unknown snakes. Might bite you. How fears develop that are reasonable, that's fine. But the idea that everyone has this inborn fear of reptiles is just not true. Objectively untrue.
Dragons sometimes are shown as friendly, often are shown as dangerous and fire-breathing and nasty.
We see the Mario Kart World release today. You mean it didn't release. They did a thing about it, though, like a video. It looks fun. It's for the Switch 2, though, which not going to be able to afford that for years, so I'm not even thinking about it. But it does look fun.
Little eyes, and they are inhuman. They've got little slitty...
I'm more excited about the Oblivion remake that's apparently shadow dropping in the next week. Pretty excited about that.
Eyes.
Oblivion's my favorite game of all time, so...
And somehow there's a part of that that doesn't resonate with us.
To think that reptilians even exist, let alone that they're in some way controlling the populace and what's going on, just seems so far out there to the normal person.
I mean, it is far out there because you need to, like, show proof of that. You need to show evidence that these things even exist, much less that they are in charge of things. So that's quite a hill in terms of your, like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Your burden of proof. You've made a quite high burden of proof for yourself by your claim. It's not other people's fault that you put out there a very, very audacious claim.
With their program.
But does your horse wear armor? Apparently the deluxe edition of the Oblivion remake has horse armor as one of the deluxe edition bonuses. Not a joke. I've been, like, double speaking and stuttering a lot lately. What's going on? Am I having, like, a neurological decline? What has been happening with my brain? I used to speak so clearly. What is happening?
Programming in their paradigm and that type of thing. So I think it's just out of the realm of belief for them, just through their programming.
The idea that life as we know it, as only...
Oh, and Viz with a $3 tip says he's going to say, "Human, mark my words."
Developed.
Am I sleeping badly? That could be it. Kinda. Depends. It's been spotty.
On this one planet, in this one slither of frequency, is ridiculous. But the human...
Did he call our planet a sliver of frequency?
Perception has been so programmed with limitation, with a sense of I can't, the sense of it cannot be, that it's left to very few, compared with the global population, to explore beyond that sense of can be. And that's why these films are not made in greater abundance.
Creatures with large heads, with fur and big eyes, like the traditional puppy dog pictures that make us go, ah, look, isn't that cute? One doesn't look at a reptile and think, oh, isn't that cute? That basic human empathy just...
Again, that's not necessarily true. You can, like, look up, like, cute snake pictures. Plenty of people find snakes to be cute. So the idea that you cannot is, like, just objectively untrue? I don't know what to tell ya. Cute reptiles. I can do reptile. And either way, the idea that you have some sort of innate, inborn reaction to certain creatures has nothing to do with the idea that there are secretive aliens hiding out. The reasons that a lot of people have phobias to specific things can be based on all sorts of factors. It doesn't mean that there's a reasonable fear out there that's causing it.
Just isn't there.
What I do is I open my mind and I let the information be my guide, and that decides where I go, not preconceived idea. And unfortunately...
That's not true? That's not true at all? You had no preconceived idea and you landed on reptilians? Unironically, if that's the truth, holy shit, he has really, really bad judgment. But also, not usually how conspiracy theorists work.
Preconceived idea, belief, whatever that may be, is the prison cell for most people, and that's why they don't go beyond it.
I think there's a lot of ego involved in this subject, as there are in a lot of others, and that type of ego is infected ego, as far as I'm concerned. It's and the last thing these entities want is to be noticed. They want to be ignored, because if they're ignored, they can get away with it, you see. So you want to infect people.
Why you gift me? Probably a random gift sub, if I had to guess. If it was just random. People do random gift subs all the time.
Think that there's no such thing, and actually try and spread that there's no such thing, so that these things can operate in the darkness.
This is programming, and David Icke talks about this, a societal programming wherein we are conditioned to hate and fear this.
Gives me the vibe of someone that bought a bunch of leather books to put on the shelf behind him for Zoom calls, but he's never actually read any of the books. You know what I mean? Like, he very specifically went out of his way to get leather-bound ones, which are nice. I like a nice leather-bound book. But, like, this feels... How do I put this? Showy. You know what I mean?
Subject.
He very much went out of his way to decorate this wall with these books.
So much that without something extra, without something more unusual happening to us.
Yeah, War and Peace is prominent too. And it's all like, how do I put this? It's all like classics of literature. And that's not to say that you can't enjoy War and Peace. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of people who can read War and Peace recreationally. But he's very specifically, I think, putting books behind him that aren't like, you know, my personal faves to read on a Saturday afternoon. It feels like they're books he put there to go, look at how smart I am. I read Faust and the Odyssey. I read War and Peace. Ooh, look at, I've read the Canterbury Tales. You know what I mean?
To cause us to search for this darker truth, people will be inclined not to see it, even if it's right in front of their face, which is what I've experienced. And even people in my own family.
Admiral Snoots, he's from Star Wars Legends, and he's adorable. You know, I'm gonna say this, he's no Baby Yoda, but he's alright. That almost makes him better, I'd say. Baby Yoda was concocted in a lab to make me buy t-shirts. That thing just is, you know?
And people that I know very well, and people who were interested in ufology, when they saw this, either didn't see it or became very upset about it.
In the early 90s, when we were first learning about the reptilians, you tended to hear about cases of rape and situations like that, and almost like an instinctive fear that some people had in response to just being in their presence, just like a physiological reaction to them. So I think all of those factors, plus the bad reputation of snakes in Judeo-Christian mythology.
That's such a strange working backwards thing. This particular series of religions have a specific symbolic meaning tied to this animal. Therefore, there must be something real and sinister lurking underneath. That's crazy, but the same token I could say, in other places in the world, reptiles or snakes, serpents are seen as signs of good luck or health. Does that mean in those countries, reptilians are nice? Like, this is why you can't use this as some sort of evidence. It's not evidence of anything. You're making vague gestures towards ideas and saying, well, that might indicate something. It doesn't. This isn't even sophomoric, it's just bullshit. Annie Kai, thanks for 47 months.
Has given them sort of a bad reputation, and that led to maybe a bit of a taboo in discussing them, but I don't think...
Yeah, you know how it's taboo to talk about snakes? Just at the dinner table at Thanksgiving, you don't bring up politics, religion, or snakes. Everyone's got that one uncle with hard opinions on snakes. Don't get me started on them serpents, boy! They're taking our jobs!
That the taboo is really necessary.
The gentleman I will call X in this article has always refused to give me his name.
Wow, that's convenient. An anonymous source that goes by X? Wow, that sounds so legitimate. That's incredible.
Of course that was highly suspicious. But he was giving me important, and in some cases...
It's true, it's X, it's Elon. Elon's doing it, true.
This is classified information.
Maybe he is the Lizard King. It does look like he's been molting for the last 5 years.
I felt...
Just can't get it off, though. It's just, like, loose-fitting.
compelled to continue my investigation, even though I knew what I was doing was very dangerous. I never really questioned the validity of what he was telling me. Somehow I knew it was the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that made me feel. Sometimes X handed me documents, photographs, or newspaper articles to follow up. Other times he would drop a name into a conversation, only giving me pieces of the puzzle.
You know, what's crazy is if I was a whistleblower, I would simply send an email with all the pertinent information and evidence attached, instead of trying to play some kind of weird ARG with the reporter I'm trying to leak information to. Why is this a game of Myst? Why are you not just like, here's the information I have, let the world know? No, we gotta drip it. Dramatic that way. That's how the world works, right?
John, I can't just tell you what's going on. Those are the rules.
Oh, those are the rules. That's crazy. I hadn't considered that.
You have to
Oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, Chair is here today. Old Chair is here. This is Old Chair. I put Chair here because I thought I could convince Lupine to come sit, because Chair is now hers. He likes to sit in it in the other room, but no luck so far. Lupine! I brought the chair! Please sit here! She says no. Overthought says, you know the rules, and so do I.
research this information yourself. I can give you places to look, people to see. Look up the work of Professor John Mack.
It was a synchronous event in the sense that I think anyone knows what I mean, is that you find out something just prior to experiencing it. And I'd read a couple of books.
Yeah, that's called a thing. I know you guys have told me this like 5 times. What's the name of that phenomena again? Where you hear about something and then you start seeing that thing everywhere? The mine-off something? Chair hates us now? Probably.
A couple of months before. One of them was Dr. John Mack, the book Abduction. Now, Dr. John Mack, some viewers may know, is a gentleman who was a university professor of psychiatry at Harvard University. He was exposed to quite a number of people with experiences. He was a skeptic, did all the psychological testing, and
the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. Thank you. I knew Meinhof was part of it. The Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. It's a cognitive thing. It's not a thing in the world. It's not like a rule of the universe. It's just that when you are focusing on something, you notice it more.
Finally, in his 2 books, was firmly in the conclusion that these were real. These were real extraterrestrial encounters. I also read the book Communion, which is a classic.
Thank you for the link, Captain Rachel.
With Whitley Strieber, talking an author again of sci-fi fiction, who also said he'd had experiences. But
wow, an author of science fiction wrote about reptilians? That's crazy.
The first person that came through my door that said,
as we all know, science fiction writers never struggle with mental illness. Cough, cough, Philip K. Dick. Cough, cough, Philip K. Dick.
Mary, I've heard you're open-minded. It's a gentleman called Ellis Taylor. And Ellis came to me via a friend, and the friend had told him I was open-minded, so he came to me really wanting to tell me about something. He said, Mary, there's no support groups for this. For this, they just think you're a loony. And
I mean, there are support groups for, like, delusions. I'm sure you could find one. Not everyone's gonna believe in reptile people, but they'll have other stuff, like therapy.
Here I had a middle-aged, very articulate gentleman who was telling me quite normally.
Not familiar, can you tell chat more about Dick? Can't tell if that's just a Dick joke, but in case you're serious, Philip K. Dick is a very famous science fiction author who unfortunately struggled with what is believed to be, I think, paranoid schizophrenia. He ended up believing like people were watching him and following him. He was a very paranoid individual, and that can be seen especially in a lot of his later appearances, which is pretty sad, but he's a great writer.
That this is what was happening to him, that he was aware he was being taken up on spacecraft, that he was waking up with shaved areas on his body, other marks on his body. His whole family were affected, that was his partner and the children. He talked about going through walls, and
It's Bat Appreciation Day. Does anyone here know where the bats hang out? We gotta start another surreality television stream soon. It's been a while.
He said no one...
Wasn't K. Dick also into the Indigo Children Starseed stuff? I'm actually not sure. It wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know.
Come to the house because they thought it was demons.
On the 13th of April in 1996, I got up about 7 o'clock in the morning, went to the loo, came back to bed. My partner went with the covers off me. What's all that all over your body?
We can't stop here. This is Bat Country.
And I had all these marks on my body, and I couldn't quite make...
Chat, do you prefer Where the Buffalo Roam or Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas? What is your preferred Hunter S. Thompson film? Felicity, with a 3-month streak, says, hey, Hannah, recently started working on a comic, and I've managed to land myself a solid job as well. Thanks for getting me through the hard times. We've certainly got more to come. Nervous chuckle. Well, I'm glad, I'm very glad that you've gotten a new job and stuff. Thanks for being a viewer. I appreciate it.
Come out, but she was really freaking out, and there was a face there, drawing of a face. There was like something there that looked like a tail or maybe a paw or something that I couldn't quite make out. And
he's doing pareidolia on the shape of a thing on his arm? That's a shame.
There were finger marks here that were in a strange configuration, and they were all red marks, and none of them had any...
Akito says, I had a professor at the University of Toronto who worked as a French translator for Philip K. Dick. He described him getting very upset when he was being interviewed with some French students when they broke out some tape recorders to record the interview, thinking they were CIA. Yeah, that sounds like him.
The impression, they just completely smooth. And yeah, and then I was burnt all the way around as well, all around the rest of my body.
Amber says, yep, from the Wikipedia page for Star People, Steiger recounted that Philip K. Dick had written to him in the late 70s to say he thought he might be one of the Star People, and that his novel Valis contained related themes. That makes sense. A lot of people with neurodivergence or mental illness end up connecting to the star seed, indigo, child stuff. They recognize something's different about them, that they don't seem to, exist in the world in the same way that neurotypical people do, and they have no way to contextualize that. So they find some weird thing as the explanation, because any explanation is often better than no explanation.
Bright red. My partner, as I said, was freaking out. She rushed to get her camera and came back and started taking photographs of them. And meanwhile, I looked in the mirror because I couldn't quite see what they were, and I could see what she was talking about because it's very distinct, these things. And she took photographs of them, and very shortly after that, they vanished.
Part of it is, the 3 questions they ask me is, am I going crazy? Is this real? And if it's real, why me? 3 crucial questions. And so it was, okay, Mary, you better find out whether this really is real, or whether a lot of people are just having a very, very interesting, unusual experience that, is more, well, they believe it's real, as is the favourite, oh, well, if they believe it's real, then it's real to them, which is the biggest cop-out you can ever get.
I mean, I don't think that's a cop-out as much as it's a compromise with people that absolutely refuse to, see past delusion. Like, if someone in your family or something believed in this stuff, that's all you can really say about it, because at what point are you going to stop arguing about it, If they're convinced and you can't argue them out of it rationally, what are you going to do? Kind of just have to say, all right, they think it's real, so that's the world we live in, and we have to deal with the fact that this family member or random person or whoever believes this thing. So when people are saying it's real to them, they don't mean that this person lives in an actual discrete reality from other people. They're saying this person believes this thing, and they're not going to be convinced otherwise, and you just kind of have to navigate that. It sucks, but what are you going to do?
I started having experiences with greys 2012 and 13.
It actually reminds me a little bit of Peter, when Peter talked about his abductions, or what he classed as his alien abductions. Now, you and I know that Peter was not abducted by aliens, but he recounts these things, and he genuinely feels traumatized by them, or at least he appears to genuinely feel traumatized by them. Now, well, it's not true that he was abducted by aliens. Somehow, through delusion or something, he's created, trauma. You can be traumatized by things that aren't real. Sucks, but it's true. And you're not going to help that person by being like, you're full of shit, you're crazy. Like, even if that might, true, it's not necessarily helpful,
Like, mid-2000...
Peter even says that he was drinking or on drugs. Yeah.
12 and has continued now, but up to 2013 with major things that had happened, and I sort of got flashbacks of seeing some of these beings, and then I started to remember I used to see beings in my mum's house and my stepfather's house between the ages of 8 and 12, which is the time that I was in this particular house with my brother, who also has had experiences, but I didn't see him as demonic, I didn't see him as angels, I didn't even see him as good or bad. I didn't have no reference for what I was seeing, but I never...
Danny Boy says, unfortunately, I had a friend who was deep into Ikean-style conspiracies. I had to stop talking to them. That's unfortunately something that happens with a lot of conspiracies like this. Become alienated from their former friends and family. They end up getting more ingratiated into conspiracy groups that pull them deeper and deeper, because it's the only place that they end up feeling like they belong, because they've already alienated all the people they used to know through their very strange and unreal beliefs.
I never talked about it full stop. It was sort of like, all right, here's something weird, and I'd pull up the sheet over my head and just hope that whatever it was would go away. So, yeah,
it sucks, honestly, dealing with loved ones whose beliefs you don't understand, we mean. Amber says, yeah. A lot of life, unfortunately. A lot of life is navigating how other people see it. Kind of like Rashomon. I know movies, right? It's been a while since I did a movie reference. It's like Rashomon, right?
Goes back a fair way. I'd contacted a lot of people for support or just to talk to about what was going on because I was in the thick of it. Mary was the first one to respond. What got me with Mary was, and later looking back especially, I could see how her intent for helping me out was pure, and it wasn't about showcasing me. It was all about me, support for me, my health, my well-being, and just to, you know, keep me grounded was the main thing that I needed. She's been there again since day dot. She's always there for me to talk to, no matter what, about how far out. As she says, the more weirder, the more wonderful for her. And I'm forever appreciative for her being in my life, just like many of us. And our friendship continues to grow, and it's gone in some weird and wonderful directions that I didn't expect. So, yeah, she's a lovely lady, and I'll forever be indebted to her.
What I was amazed to discover was many of those that had this experience, when they began to understand it, often their fear went. And often it's the fear of the unknown than what actually happened. And so I had to isolate, is it what actually happens?
How do I rate Rashomon? I think it's a 10 out of 10. I mean, I'd agree. I think I'd be an asshole if I rated it any less. It's kind of like, first of all, I do love Rashomon. I think it's a great, really entertaining movie. On top of it being just like a masterclass in fucking black and white cinematography. The use of mirrors in Rashomon to enhance the like light beams coming through the leaves in the forest. Oh my god, beautiful. But I think you gotta give Rashomon a 10 out of 10. It'd be like saying the Beatles aren't a 10 out of 10. Like, even if you didn't like the Beatles, you'd be an asshole if you said the Beatles sucked. You know what I mean? You can personally not like the Beatles, but if you're like, the Beatles suck, you're an asshole, right?
That scares them, or is it the fact that they don't know what's happened? So that's two separate things. So in my...
What kind of Pokemon knockoff is Rashomon?
My whole panorama
Rashomon is a samurai that gets cucked.
of those having...
That's the worst description of Rashomon, but I'm gonna stick with it. It's about a samurai that gets cucked. Maybe? Question mark?
Experience, for example, only maybe 25 to 30% are actually traumatized.
Think the Beatles were better in their boy band days? Nah, I like them after they get real fucked up in India.
And what amazed me, there were people eventually coming to me, and this is where I had to broaden my questionnaire, that saying, look, Mary, we're not frightened of the ETs. In fact, we think they're family. What scares us is being on a planet with humans that are so barbaric they still kill one another when they have a disagreement. It's actually really hard here because I know I come from a place where we don't do things like that. I feel like I've been dumped on a primitive planet. I don't like it. I've always felt isolated. I feel like I've been adopted in my own family. I don't even feel like I connect to them. I feel like my family has, I've got something to do here, and this is why I'm here. And
again, a lot of this feeling like you're separate from other people, your family, society at large. A lot of these are experiences that, like, non-neurotypical experience, like people who have ADHD or are autistic, somewhere, on that spectrum. That's a pretty common experience. So again, the Indigo Children Starseed thing tends to attract people who are neurodivergent.
These I call the star seeds or star kids, because their real connection is actually to those intelligences out there than actually the human beings that they're operating or sharing their environment with. So, in that sense, this is a huge panorama of experience where some are terrified of the beings and some actually think the beings are family. So where do you go with that? Only recently I had a young woman tell me that she was a hybrid and that she believed that she was part human, part reptilian, for example. So for her, what was hard was being in a human body when she related much to her her reptilian soul, if you like.
Oh god, is she just a scaly? Oh no! Oh no, they got a scaly and made her think she's a starseed. That's a shame. Carpcosian says, Rashomon, the cucked samurai Pokemon. This Pokemon sits in the cuck tent and stabs to death the person fucking their partner in a ritualistic snuff. Steel fighting Pokemon. It should be a ghost Pokemon, I think. Because the samurai comes back to testify at his own trial as a ghost.
That's how she saw it. Others believe that their soul is...
Rashomon is about not only how we lie to each other, but ourselves. And, there's no way for us to know objective reality as long as everyone is filtering it through their own subjective viewpoint. Anyway, it's pretty good. I like when they have the fight where they're not good at fighting.
From a mantid, which is an insect-like being, the felines, the cat being, for example.
Amber says, oddly enough, we have met 4 people who believe the starseed stuff. Each of them also told them we were one. We are still close with 3 out of the 4. The thing about the starseed thing is, I'm not trying to shit talk anyone, because a lot of the time it's people looking for meaning. It's a little bit evangelical. If these people claim to be starseeds or whatever, often they will find other people similar to them, people who are alienated or people who maybe are neurodivergent or whatever, and they want to bring them into the fold as well, because the more people that share this belief, the more legitimate it seems, more real it is if a bunch of people believe it. Not really real, but, you know, kind of socially real. So, watch out for that. Watch out for that. They thought you were one. Yeah, I knew what y'all meant by that, more or less. Yeah, try not to get recruited by starseed.
They say their origins are from those places, so they relate to that particular form. And if you have an 8-year-old that tells you that their family is a mantid, this is an insect-like being, that's his family. His human family is here to look after him and he loves them.
The child is a mantid. Stone Corbell says, I had a friend in high school whose mom believed in the starseed indigo child thing about her son and us, his friends. And now I'm just thinking, lady, we were just all autistic and formed a friend group because of our special interests converged. H-Bird says, I'm not a starseed, I'm a star spore.
But that's his family, and when he dies, that's where he's going, to his ancestral family, which is the mantid insect-like being. And he gets quite emotional about it. This is an 8-year-old getting emotional about going back to his origin.
Okay, now this is abuse. I would argue that this is abuse. You're telling a kid that they're a fucking mantis person and their real family isn't their family and that they're gonna go to their fucking mantis family? Horrifying. That is child abuse. Fuck this lady. I'm no longer amused. I'm mad. Kind of one thing when adults do this to themselves. When do it to kids, that's a very different thing.
It's very profound. And you've got others that believe they're a mix. And, you know, Simon Parks is one of those, because I was able with this young boy, which I'll call Paul, and Simon Parks, I was actually interacting with both of them at similar times, although one's in the Northern Hemisphere, one is in the Southern Hemisphere. They never spoke to one another, but I was able to get information to look for corroboration, and Simon Parks believes his mother is a mantid, although he also connects to the cat feline beings and to the reptilians.
What is he? What? He can't be all 3. He can't be all 3 unless the felines, the reptids, and the mantids, can they all interbreed? You gotta get this straight, man. That doesn't even make goddamn sense. Not even part of the same fucking clade. H-Baird says, so her kid has a robot suit that helps him walk and turns him into a superhero that totally ripped off an episode of the original Star Trek. What episode of Star Trek is that?
He feels most connected to the mantid. And he talks about going into his mantid form on the spacecraft and working with humans. And when I spoke...
Do we have anything on the bingo card yet? We're not playing bingo today.
This little 8-year-old, he described it in this
Have I ever encountered any folks that think the world of the John Wick movies is real? No, that's a pretty fun one, though. I do like those John Wick movies. Silly, but they're enjoyable. I haven't seen 4 yet. I enjoyed the first 3.
way that he evaporated into his mantid form and would operate as a mantid and then come back into his human form. So here is a little boy talking about a soul.
Is the little boy's name Gregor Samsa?
Transfer.
One of the questions that pretty much all experiencers ask themselves at some point is, why?
That's a cockroach, not a mantis. Shut up!
Why me? You know, another one is, am I going crazy? But eventually they figure out that they're not crazy, that whatever they're experiencing, they're still functioning, and it's not, you know, it's not a form of anything. You know, John Mack certainly was not was not able to identify it as any kind of psychological pathology. So they ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? And well, we know that the abduction phenomenon does run in families, and the same thing seems to be true for reptilian contact. So you can look at reptilian contact as a facet of the UFO abduction phenomenon, and it suggests a genetic aspect to their interest in us. But, you know, in addition to following...
What about this has anything to do with genetics?
Family lines, there's more to it. A number of reptilian contactees have actually recalled memories of having a past life as a reptilian. And, you know, it doesn't appear that people are chosen at random out of the human population. One abductee, one reptilian
I think we need to start a scale, and it's how much the current conspiracy bears a resemblance to Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed lore. And we're veering closer to Assassin's Creed lore. We gotta get in the fucking Animus and relive our reptilian lives.
contactee described to me what she calls
Toreador says, or someone tells a story to their kids, the kids want to feel connection with their parents, and the kid have hallucinations as a social response. Yeah, probably that one.
Dimensional simultaneous existence, because that time, basically, if you look into physics, ideas like the relativity of simultaneity and the concept of space-time, turns out that everything is happening now, including past and future events. Everything is really happening all at the same time. So
okay, but like not from our perspective, and causality still stands to my knowledge. So what does that even mean from our subjective point of view? Who cares?
Past lives and future lives exist now. So what in reincarnation traditionally would think of as past lives, well, if you think of it as simultaneous multidimensional existence, those are really parallel lives. And there are situations, for instance, in dreaming where consciousness can move from one of these parallel lives to another. And that, you know, that explains why there is a connection between us and these other lives that we're living as reptilians, and it explains why some of the interactions go on.
My first experience that I'm aware of was when I was either 4 or 5 years old in Texas, where I encountered...
Am I crazy? I don't even remember being 4 or 5 years old. I fully admit that I don't have many childhood memories, but like 4 or 5?
A brown being that was levitating in my bedroom, and it had round eyes, kind of a wrinkled face. If the viewer looks up the book Alien Jigsaw 2, the researcher's supplement, I think it's called, by Katarina Wilson, she has a...
And it has the ultimate DVD Blu-ray library, and that's better than any book. For the record, I own books. I do own and read books, for the record.
Drawing in there of a being she describes as a type 2 gray.
And not all of them are comic books, believe it or not.
And that's pretty much what I saw, except it wasn't gray, it was brownish. And that was the first consciously remembered. Actually, it wasn't conscious. I remembered it consciously for many years, and as is the case with many other abductees, suddenly I reached a certain age where I just forgot all about it. But prior to that, I was telling everyone I could about it, right? But then a point came in time where it was wiped from my conscious memory. Years later, after I moved to San Diego and became a member of the San Diego UFO Society, I had a hypnotic regression about some of my experiences, and although nothing new came up, what happened was my subconscious was kind of jarred and shaken around a bit, because like a day or two after I had that, what I thought was an unsuccessful hypnotic.
Danny Boy says, if anything, I'm jealous of your collection. More of that, yeah. Everyone tell me how jealous they are of my collection. That's good. Do that.
Regression. I was reading a book called Project Omega, UFOs, NDEs, and the Mind at
I haven't wasted years buying DVDs.
Large.
I've amassed a collection, the likes of which people are jealous of.
By Dr. Kenneth Ring, if memory serves. And at the end of that book, he has a questionnaire to determine if someone has had alien abduction experiences or not. And I basically answered yes to like 17 out of 22. And I got triggered when I had one question, when I read one question that asked, as a child, do you recall having experiences with little people or little friends that no one else could see? And then just as soon as I finished...
I mean, some kids have imaginary friends like that, so what, are you gonna try and say your imaginary friend was real?
Finished reading that question, bang, that memory of when I was in Texas when I was 4 or 5 years old came back. When I came back from Germany in 1990, I had a series...
As that you recall, I have a deep section of tokusatsu content. I do. Hold on. Let's see. I will read here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 seasons of Super Sentai. I have all of the current released Ultraman stuff in America, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 7, 8, 9, 30, 31, 32 seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 Blu-rays of Kamen Rider stuff. I have all of the released American Metal Hero stuff. I have Red Baron. I have Hokkaider. I have a Tokusatsu movie collection. Pretty good. Alright, I'm done. I'm done talking about my special interest. Sorry.
Series of UFO experiences and abduction experiences culminating in a abduction, full waking consciousness at night, when those 3 reptilian...
You wish you could encase yourself in your hobby without getting put on a watch list. It's nice. I'll literally just sit here sometimes at night and I'll be like, I'll just look at my collection. It's very nice.
Grays came and they took me.
Sorry, Phoenix said episodic memory only starts being developed at age 3, and that's for normal kids with normal childhoods, so even they don't always have memories from 3, but it's impossible to remember anything before age
3. They took me up into their ship and they put me on a examining table and they did all this other stuff to me. And that was just one of a series of events. And then I was frustrated living in the San Francisco Bay Area because I had no one to talk to about these experiences. So when I moved to San Diego and joined the San Diego...
I'm sorry, you're telling me you couldn't find a single person in San Francisco that had also claimed to be abducted by aliens? I don't believe that. You didn't look very hard. It's San Francisco. You could have found a couple people.
UFO Society. Suddenly, I could talk to other people about it. I can even talk to others who've had similar experiences. So it was a simple transition for me to become a researcher, because what I realized in my studies was after I had that full waking consciousness experience in September of 1990, when I came back from Germany, I immediately started researching the subject in earnest. Now, I'd always been interested in this subject, always been interested in Bigfoot, the Bermuda Triangle, other dimensions, so on and so forth. That was stuff I took for granted, including the subject of UFOs. But there was an element of me for years that was kind of scared of the UFO subject. There was something about the subject that gave me the creeps, that didn't... that I couldn't quite understand, and that gave me...
I love my DVDs more than you guys?
A certain degree of...
I don't know most of you, so this is a parasocial relationship.
Fear, like when
Now, are you saying if there was a firing squad and I had to choose my Blu-rays over you guys, of course I'd choose you guys. Which one do I like to spend time with in private? The Blu-rays.
In high school, for example, I would see beams of light, bluish white light coming
But
through
you
the
all
ceiling.
have inherent value as human beings, and that's what's important.
And do a search pattern on the floor. I had a lot of experiences where I was taken out of my body astrally, and I've since come to find out that a lot of these experiences happen in our astral state because these beings have the means to trigger an out-of-body experience within us. It's a multifaceted experience. It's not just physical abductions, it's astral experiences, it's what's been described as dream hacking or astral dreamscape manipulation, telepathic experiences, so on and so forth.
When an alien creature of any sort interacts with a human, 9 times out of 10 or 9.9...
See, to me, this looks more like the bookshelf of someone who actually reads the books. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's read all of these books, I don't know. But, like, you know, they're just normal books that he's probably read and he threw on there. Maybe by topic or whatever, he's just got one laying on the books horizontally. This looks like someone who's probably read the books, and they're not just there for show.
999 times out of 10, that human is going to be terrified of this creature. There is no long association with these creatures. They cannot appear as they look because the human will just freak out, and whatever the purpose that they've come to that person for, they won't be able to do it. So they will come in disguise. And they don't physically change their body. They go into the mind of the human, and in the human's mind they change. Now, because of my very long association with these creatures, they don't need to do that now. In the early days they did, when I was a very small child, but also it was a part of me accepting them for what they were. So as a 5-year-old, or even, 1963, as a 3.5-year-old child, I was shown exactly what they looked like, and it did freak me out. Of course it did. But if you take a child that's 3 and stick it on an aeroplane and fly it from, I don't know, Birmingham Airport to London Airport, by the time that kid's 10, it will go from Heathrow to JFK with no worries because it knows no different. If these creatures don't harm you, you have no reason to be scared of them. So
Rick M says, what do these people who think they're mantises or others do when they become ill and will go to see a doctor? The doctor won't detect anything but human stuff, blood pressure, heartbeat, urine, etc. I'm sure they have explanations for that. I'm sure they'd just say that they are disguised as humans, that their other mantis DNA or whatever is disguised under the human to better infiltrate the humanoid society. I don't know. They could justify it in any number of ways.
Means that my perceptions are...
Also, I don't know if the kind of people that believe in reptilians also are the people most trustful of doctors, so it's always possible some just wouldn't go to the doctor.
Going to be more accurate than somebody who's half scared out of their mind, has their body frozen and can't move. So no, there are shadow creatures that are genuinely shadow beings. There are jinn that can appear like shadow creatures.
Jinn are genies.
And all of the entities that we're discussing have the ability to go into a human's mind and make that human think they're seeing anything. And that's why Adolf Hitler got Dr. Mengele back in the late 30s to attempt to do work on humans that would prevent aliens from gaining control of their mind. And this...
Okay, so they're trying to justify the horrifying torture that the Nazis put people through in the name of so-called science, in the name of their torturous, I don't even want to call them experiments. So that's fucked up. That's incredibly fucked up. Reminder, once again, that the reptilian thing is often a cover for anti-Semitism, or at least a, filter pack they throw on top of anti-Semitism, make it sci-fi instead of seeming overtly Nazi-ish. But remember, underneath the veneer, still Nazis.
This is when Mengele just went completely off on his own tangent and ended up working for the Illuminati in America. But it originally stems from Hitler saying, because he was in contact with the Aldebaran off-world group, how can we have soldiers who can prevent
all the information been taken out of their mind by these aliens. So that's where all this research started from. This is what totally scared the Yanks. So
fuck you. Sorry, I just... There's no appropriate way to respond. It's maybe cathartic to respond with anger, but he can't hear me. Even if he did, he wouldn't care. He doesn't give a shit what I have to say about it. What's the point?
For most
Fucking
people
asshole.
who have an alien experience, they really don't know what they're seeing, because they can only see with their eyes and believe what's happened to them. When you have an association with these creatures, and I can't be the only one, but when you have a long association with them, you have certain agreements, and these creatures are not permitted to deceive me. And I say I'm 54 now, and I haven't lied to me yet, or I haven't caught them out yet. So they're either incredibly good liars, but when I ask a straight question, I usually get an answer, or they will refuse to answer rather than give me a lie.
The revelation that the ever-growing missing persons reports were somehow connected to alien abduction phenomenon seemed ludicrous.
At no point did you connect these two. You, at the beginning, said, there's a bunch of missing persons cases. And then you went and interviewed these people who think they were abducted by aliens. And now you're just arbitrarily connecting them? What are you doing? You didn't make an argument. What are you even talking about?
To me. There was something inside of me, an inert feeling to repel the information, and I didn't know why. As a researcher and journalist, it is built into my psyche to question...
An inert feeling? Did he mean innate? Inert would mean, like, it's not doing anything. An inert feeling would be like a lack of feeling, or a static feeling. I think he meant innate. No one caught that in editing? Okay.
Everything I'm told. When I raised my doubts about this one evening in a taped conversation with X, I could never have...
Like, they had to make this little, like, type graphic insert shot, so, like, he edited this and was like, yep, inert, that sounds correct. That's a little funny.
...myself for what happened.
Sorry, but I can't have you screaming like a little girl, so... You've got to promise me you'll be quiet. If I wanted to harm you, you would be harmed. John, please. Sit.
With a 50-bit link. Oh, that's muted. Hold on.
I've connected the two dots.
You didn't connect shit, but...
I've connected them.
You needed a reason to take this further, and I just gave it you. When I did this, I put both of us in danger. People like you don't meet people like me unless it's important. We consider you important, John. You're not special. You're not the chosen one. You're not the savior. But you're a hell of a journalist, which is good for us. Bad for you.
I'm sorry, is he claiming that he got brought in to be like threatened by a reptilian over this fake documentary? That's hilarious.
What, you think this story was your idea? We needed to trigger you. That's what we do, John. We poke you, prod you, coerce you, make you do things we can't. Well, not
why is there anything you can't do? You're all powerful reptilians. That doesn't make sense. You can shapeshift, but you can't make a documentary.
Openly anyway. For now, just know, some of us are trying to help. You got a friend in me.
The reptilians fucking love Randy Newman. Oh my god. He thought that would be, like, ominous. That's great. Alright, that's a good moment to pause on real quick. I have to pee. So, I'm gonna use the bathroom. While I'm gone, Cher will tell you about, I guess the chairs, plural, while I'm gone, will tell you about, new chair will tell you about Return of the Ape Man, and old chair will tell you about Murders in the Rue Morgue. But this one's down here, because I don't have a second spot to put it. I guess I can put it on old chair. Here we go. We did it. Look at that. We got foreground, midground, background, cinema. I'm gonna go pee. Don't go anywhere. Ugh. Are you guys being mean to old chair? Toreador says, I need an old chair and a young old... I need an old chair and a young old chair. The power of Bob's compels you. The power of Bob's compels you. Your mother reclines in hell. Title, the relaxer cyst. I'm gonna pass on that one, dog. Anyway.
I was in America.
I thought old chair was being scrapped. Here's the thing. I did hit it with a hammer a lot, but then Lupine loved the chair. He needs the chair.
On a speaking tour. I say a speaking tour. In those days, a speaking tour largely meant talking to myself. You know, I mean, I went to Chicago and spoke to 8 people, or near Chicago anyway. But on that speaking tour, over a period of about 15 days, I met 12 separate people, and I was going to a different place every day, who told me the same basic story, how they'd seen humans turn into a reptilian form and then back again. And it was such a common theme that they were describing that I started exploring from that time. So it came into my life very quickly. I'd kind of heard like little mentions of it before and just let it go. But in this 15-day period, that really focused my mind. So there's something to look at here. When you're faced with that situation with, or you know, one person after another in different parts of America telling you the same thing, you can either go, I'm not going there. What will people say if I start talking about this stuff? Or you can say, information's my guide. I'm going there. What then happened is I came back.
Did you try and falsify any of these people's claims, David? Or did you just take them at face value and not consider that many people share the same delusion? It doesn't mean the thing they believe is real. For instance, in schizophrenia, shadow people, usually hallucinations of this sort are audio, audible. But when they do have visuals, shadow people are a common thing that people with schizophrenia see. Does that mean shadow people are real? No, it means that our brains are very similar and sometimes they malfunction in similar ways and cause people to have very similar hallucinations. Doesn't mean that hallucination is real.
Back from there to the Isle of Wight, and I was meeting someone, actually not very far from here, who had been married to a Satanist who had been the warden for Burnham Beeches. Burnham Beeches, out west of London, is owned by the City of London, the financial district.
Popular media can also influence hallucinations. Yes, and cultural norms shape delusions and hallucinations as well. For instance, in some other cultures, voices in people's heads aren't necessarily as negative as they are in the United States, for instance. In the United States, when people report hearing voices, those voices tend to be very negative, foreboding, scary, say negative things. Whereas in certain other societies, people who also have audio hallucinations don't necessarily have them saying negative things. So culture that you grow up in has a large influence on what you perceive when you have delusions.
And it is a big play.
I think I've talked about this story before too, years and years ago, in like my earlier 20s when I did mushrooms one time. You guys know I'm non-religious, but nonetheless, I grew up in a Christian, largely, society and culture, and was raised Christian. And in part of the hallucination I had on the drugs was in the mirror seeing Jesus, you know? It's not that Jesus was there. It's that our brains are full of information we've soaked up our whole lives, and we associate that information with significance, right? If we hold on to it.
Of Satanism and very strange happenings. It's wooded copses and few open areas. And she asked to meet me because
I should also point out it was white, stereotypical Jesus that you think of from pop culture, not what Jesus would have actually looked like as a historical figure. To further add to the cultural contextual nature of hallucinations or delusions.
What I was writing about, because she wanted to tell me about the Satanism which she experienced. And she told me when I met her about seeing Ted Heath, former Prime Minister of Britain, took us into the European Union, doing a satanic ritual at Burnham Beeches, because she lived there in their warden's house. And when this conversation was finished, and I was having a cup of tea, and I was just finished my tea, and I was putting it down and turning to go, and I just said to her as a throwaway line, I've just come back from America, and I met all these people that kept telling me how they'd seen people turning to reptiles, and I heard her first, and I turned around. She's going, oh my God, I wasn't going to tell you about that. She said what happened was she saw lights and she took the dog out that night, and then she went through and looked through the trees.
Were they wearing robes like this?
At this light, and she saw Heath in this circle. And she said what she then saw was Heath shift into a reptilian form and grow about 2 feet, which is absolutely common in descriptions of this.
Where does the mass come from? They're growing 2 feet? That requires a lot of energy. Where's the energy to create that mass coming from, or to grow that mass, whatever?
All over the world.
That doesn't make sense. You can't just grow 2 feet without that costing something metabolically.
And she said he started speaking then in a voice a bit like, she described it as a bit like...
Blood engorged, his whole body engorged 2 feet taller? Wow, he is a grower.
Like the old transatlantic telephone conversations when there was gaps. And she said the thing that shocked her more than anything else is that when this happened, no one in the circle moved in any way that related to shock or surprise. It seemed to them the most common thing, common thing you could imagine. And from the American experience, and that lady too, then the synchronicity of my life started bringing more and more information in about it, and more people with experiences about it. And that's been the way my life has gone in the last 25 years. A subject will come out of nowhere into my life, and then suddenly, bang, information about that subject's coming from everywhere. And that's what happened with the reptilian thing.
There's a lot of people out there who are under the misapprehension that somehow all of this is promulgated by David Icke and nobody else, and this is absolutely not true.
I mean, I don't think people say he's the only one. He was an early advocate for this kind of conspiracy and helped spread it, though. It's not that he's the only one saying it, it's that he's one of the biggest, if not the biggest voice throughout, like, the late 80s and the 90s, propagating this bullshit to other people who then also propagate it.
I was once privileged to sit at a dinner table with David Icke and Jordan Maxwell. David was on one side, Jordan was the other, and they started telling stories to each other. And I had a dictaphone in my pocket. Here's a piece of advice to any would-be journalists here who happen to be watching this. Always have a dictaphone in your pocket. You never know when it's going to be useful to you. So I asked their permission, I put the dictaphone on the table, and then they were exchanging anecdotes with each other about reptilians like a tennis match. It was fascinating. And
I honestly would have liked to have heard that conversation if for no other reason than it would clearly be two world-class bullshitters bullshitting back and forth and trying to one-up each other. That would probably be pretty entertaining to listen to.
I'll just give a couple of those because they're more...
A dictaphone, a recording device. How old are you?
More than interesting.
I'm early 30s and I know what a fucking dictaphone are you. How old are you?
Interesting. I'll start with Jordan.
Even if, like, you didn't know, you could look at something like the Flintstones movie, which had a dicta-bird, and work backwards and go, the Flintstones has appliances that are not real appliances. They're made of animals, but they're based on real ones. Dicta-bird, dictaphone. You could make that connection.
Story. I'll condense this as best I can.
Maybe I'm the only one that works like that, intuits things based on things I've seen in. Which is not healthy, by the way. Don't do that.
He told this story by a grown woman who he knew personally about her experience when she was a small girl. And she came from an Air Force family and lived on a military base.
Dictaphone is usually a handheld cassette recorder that uses mini cassettes. Yeah, Cindy Lou Who used one in The Grinch when she was interviewing people in the Ron Howard movie, The Grinch.
And her father had the kind of job such that when the phone rang, sometimes he had 10 minutes to leave the house with a
Watch Flintstones, the vitamin? Of course, my parents always told me the vitamins were good for my eyes. I just hated that I had to stare that long.
The packed bag, and he might not be back for a couple of weeks. And whenever that happened, the protocol was that she would not be in the house alone for any reason. And on this one occasion, she begged her father to be left in the house. She said, well, I'm a big girl now, I can take care of myself, there's nothing to worry about. And her father demurred. And so there were guards on the outside of the house, and this was inside a secure installation, and so there didn't really seem to be a problem. She was in the house on her own. She was a young girl, she was 11 or 12 years old or something like that. And the story that she reports was this. She said that a reptilian being, a large reptilian being, emerged from the walk-in closet. The reptilian being was so tall that it had to duck to get out of the door of the walk-in closet.
Why was it in the closet? Oh, I should have made it out of the closet joke. Trans reptilian. Fuck.
Well, froze in terror. This creature...
Reptilians don't belong in the closet. They belong at Pride. He did it.
Floated across the floor towards her. didn't actually touch the ground. It clearly had...
Because it couldn't fit in the bread box?
Had designs on something that didn't seem to be very welcome to her. She ran to the bathroom, she locked herself in the bathroom, and she screamed and screamed and screamed as this creature clawed on the outside of the door. And then
I've also seen signs.
Finally, the guy...
Am I crazy? I don't like signs. Not that much, at least. To me, they're like a handful of good Shyamalan movies. The best one is The Sixth Sense. A lot of people say Signs is their number 2. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Hurt her, who are outside.
My number 2 would be Unbreakable.
The house.
And then maybe The Visit. The rest are all quite bad, but entertainingly bad. I like Old. Terrible movie, but it's funny.
They came rushing in. This was their job, and this creature disappeared. And the claw marks were visible on the outside of the door. When her father got back, she said, "This is why you must never be in the house alone." And it's interesting because her father didn't even seem particularly astonished by what had happened. It was like this was one of the things that was known could happen. Go figure. This was told by this grown woman to Jordan Maxwell 20, 30 years later after this had all...
Why is the grown woman part relevant? Do you think grown people don't make shit up or have delusions?
What happened to her?
Misremember things?
I have this sense that I've known them all my life, or known who they are all my life. But, and I can remember past life stuff with dragons and things like that, okay? Which is not exactly the same thing, I know. But this particular time, it was during a 47-day experience that included that 13th of April thing.
What?
47 days it went on for, right? Night after night, day after day, left with patterns and marks and finger marks and all sorts of things going on. But during that time, I was sitting in the lounge.
I'd like to ask this guy if during this time period was he involved with any drugs?
Wanted to go to the loo, and to get from the lounge to the loo, you had to pass through the corner of the kitchen. There was a door here, and then you went through a door there. As I went through that door there, just going to go into that door there, there was a reptilian standing there. It was tall. I mean, I didn't have a tape measure on me or anything, but it was a lot taller than me. And it was crouched like that. It was green. It had these kind of orangey slit eyes. It had a paler chest. It had like ridges and scales. But the thing about it was that it looked at me, and what I felt was from him was, oh shit, it's in me.
This guy in drugs, do I think he's the type? I'm not gonna say I think he's the type, but I would say if you wanted to cast John Hurt's meth addict brother, he wouldn't be a bad person to call.
It was more kind of
What
worried
I know? Yeah, that's Jason.
that I'd seen it
The dick.
than having any kind of negative intent towards me or whatsoever. And I'm on the move, you see, when I see this, and I'm just going to step into the hallway to go to the loo. And as I saw it, I was in mid-flight, so I couldn't stop immediately, so I went like that, came back, and it had gone. But the whole room was not the room. It was standing in the corner of the room, where the corner of the room should have been, but the room wasn't there. It was another dimension I'd walked through another dimension.
I've had 3 experiences.
I hate when you walk into another dimension.
With the reptilians personally. The first one was late 2012. I was at home and I started to vibrate and get this ringing in my ears. And I was laying on the couch listening to the radio, and it got to a certain point where I had my eyes were closed at the time. I had a flash. At that time, I sat up and stood up, and I was still vibrating, the ears were ringing, and all of a sudden I just got engulfed with white light, and I appeared in this this cave is the only way I can put it, and it was like a yellowish orange rock all around me. And right in front of me was what I thought, perceived straight away, was a lizard man, because I still hadn't at this time checked up on reptilians. I heard about it, I thought, oh, who knows, you know. And
So you had heard about it, meaning you were already primed for this particular thing.
it was a yellowish brown colour. They were about 6'2", 6'3", there was 3 of them. 2 of them that were directly in front of me were about 6'2", 6'3", around the same height, and there was a small one about 5'5", and it was the same, they had these things protruding.
Aw, poor 5'5" reptilian.
From here.
I think the other reptilians make fun of him.
Eyes, the nose was a bit down and the stockier, and they were stocky, like muscly, stocky looking dudes. At that point, basically the main frame of what had happened was I was told by the reptilian in front of me that they're breaking up to factions basically, and that they want ascension too. This group. And I'm just thinking, why are you telling me? And they said, oh, well, this particular being in front of me said, because we want you to tell your people, like, put it in your book. And I was writing Operation Starseed at the time, and I'm just thinking, this is just...
Yeah, totally. Why abduct someone famous or influential to get the message out? Just go find this random asshole from Australia. That'll do it.
Just what, at this time, like, while this is going on too, to my left, about 50 metres in the distance, and this cave would have been a few hectares big, like a city block or something big, but I couldn't see any entrances. I'm assuming down further.
The funniest thing would be if reptilians were real, they wanted to obscure their existence, and they did so by abducting crackpots and telling them to tell the world about them so no one takes claims of reptilians seriously.
To my left, there was
Marcel with a link. Ooh, what's this from?
an entrance because there was a flying saucer with the grey walking around it, and it had a bigger head than the normal ones I'd seen.
I have a movie script there. More feels like a throwaway joke from a Douglas Adams book.
Before. So this is, while that's going on 50 metres away to my left, and to my right I noticed like a screen. It was like 5 metres by 5 metres, I assume. That was the diameter, and it was like a flat screen. If I looked at it, I didn't see anything, but if I looked at it in my peripheral vision, I could actually see a 3D hologram of the Earth coming out of it. And what I assume was fault lines and earthquakes zones and that was sort of marked out on it. I won't go...
Why are earthquakes important enough information to constantly being displayed on the holographic globe for the reptilians? How many earthquakes are even happening at any given time in the world? Minor ones are probably more common. How often do earthquakes happen globally?
Particularly to what colours I saw on it and stuff, because that's just a little thing that I've kept for me, you know, if people ask me. At around that time, a white light engulfed me again and I appeared back at home in the lounge room, standing where I'd been previously.
In the high desert of Southern California, me and our team were doing what we call reptilian stakeouts. One of our friends, a female MyLab, in the high desert of Southern California in the Victorville, Barstow area, was having frequent reptilian experiences. The reptilians were entering the house through a number of portal entries, one of which was in the children's bedroom.
Don't put the children's bedroom in the room with the reptile portal. I warned them. And
this goes back to the lore about the boogeyman coming out of wardrobes, coming out of closets. That this is the basis for that, is that these entities, not just reptilians but other beings, they create these interdimensional energetic portal entries, which...
Ashley says the National Earthquake Information Center says there are about 55 earthquakes a day around the world. That's 20,000 a year. Fortunately, most are very weak. Oh, nice. Thanks, Plate Tectonics. Appreciate ya. Appreciate ya refreshing the soil and whatnot and making mountains. Very cool. Very cool. I say we bring back Pangea. That was pretty dope.
Allows them whether they're in our plane of existence, from another dimension, or hovering in some spacecraft
Another
somewhere.
dimension, another dimension, another dimension, another dimension, another dimension.
They enter through these portal entries.
Beastie Boys.
And in the children's bedroom, there was this portal entry in the closet, the wardrobe, as they call it in the UK and other places. And me and my colleague...
I know that, because I have read the book with the lion and the witch and Santa giving kids weapons.
would do what we call reptilian stakeouts, where me and my lab buddy would flip a coin, and the winner would sleep on the bed, and the loser would sleep in a sleeping bag on the floor. And then the next night we'd alternate. And on one occasion, I woke up to find this large...
Not much of a stakeout if you're both asleep. You know what I mean? I feel like a stakeout implies you're both awake. It's a stakeout and you're both asleep. You're not staked out. You're asleep. Wherever you are.
6 foot tall plus reptilian, very robust, very large chest.
Virile, I would describe him as.
Very large biceps, very large muscles, looming over me as I lay there. I was immobilized.
And he had the vibe that if I just put my head in his chest, everything would be okay. Benikagami with 40 bits says, one of my biggest concerns is that right-wing leaders might intentionally be spreading and making up conspiracies to help obscure their own schemes. Like, I know conspiracy thought comes natural to humans, but there's a part of me that wonders how much of it may be astroturfed. By the way, ContraPoint's conspiracy video is very good. She didn't fumble the bag at the end like she's been doing with her last few videos. I haven't actually watched ContraPoint's videos in some years. Probably catch up.
And I tried to call out to my friend, but I couldn't even...
Be getting a new supercontinent about 250 million years, so just need to wait a bit. You know, I don't think I'll quite make it. That's a shame. Get to live to see 13 more Batman movies, probably, though, so... Got that going for me.
Manifest a squeak. It was like the power of speaking had been taken from me momentarily.
Yeah, that's sleep paralysis, as Kippa or Kipo points out. I've only had sleep paralysis once. It was not fun. It is a very scary experience. So unfortunately, people who experience it either very intensely or repeatedly sometimes rationalize it as actually being abducted or probed by aliens.
And this being radiated this negative energy, which I liken to when some of the big cats in our world, when they emit a roar, the roar reverberates in the chest cavity of, say, a human being, and effectively paralyzes the human being, and then the tiger or whatever the case may be can then attack and devour the person. Well, these beings, some of them, they emit a very negative energy which makes one's skin crawl and which induces paralysis. So I lay there for what seemed to be a long time while this thing was looming over me. And what was interesting, I forgot to mention, was there was also 3 or 4 members of our team outside in the living room sleeping in sleeping bags, and they didn't hear anything.
The second experience happened in February 2013, and I just gone to bed at night, and I've pulled back the doona, got in the bed, and I've laid down now. At the time I was sleeping, so the blinds were open, and there was a street light and there's moon light that can come in, so I can just, with all the activity going on, it's just so you can, also I could see, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I've got some reference for what the hell's going on, if it's in physical form. And I didn't feel alone. All of a sudden, I opened up my eyes and...
Don't make fun of the Australians' voice, they can't help it. They were born in a horrifying prison continent.
Like about 1.5 foot, 2 foot from my head on my right side was this huge eye, and it was, I could tell it was yellow, and there was a black slit pupil, like it had to have been about this big, and it was a little grey butt, so it was only like 3.5, it wasn't big, but the head on it was huge, and I could see, you know, the scales on it, and again, that was what the Elohim had projected to me, so I'm like...
The Elohim? That's the Christian God!
Good. I wasn't freaking out. The eye freaked me out a bit, but I wasn't freaking out from it. It was the to me, vibration or how it resonated with me. I just it didn't resonate with me. At this certain time, I closed my eyes and just a thought came to me to, you know, why am I judging it? And to show it love that I didn't want it, like, I guess the best way to explain it is I felt sorry for it being in the state that it was in. At which time it started to turn into like it started to look shocked. How I would have been looking at it, it started to look at me. And then all of a sudden...
Wait, the reptilians' facial expressions are readable by human beings? Like they evolved the same exact facial expressions that humans did? That express the same... That's not even universal for humans. I don't know if you know that. They've done studies on this. Facial expressions and their relation to what they communicate is culturally specific. So, like, in one culture, or in many cultures, smiling might mean one thing, but in some other cultures it means other things, right? So, I don't think the reptilians would have the same body language as human beings if they existed.
Starting to sort of turn into like a smoke, which I've got photos of how these beings can appear at certain times. That sort of turned into like this smoky substance, and it disappeared. And for about a year I didn't sleep in my room after that. I had to meditate till I went to sleep.
On another occasion in that house, there were different reptilians, basically all of the same species, but in different stages of maturation. And so there were immature reptoids, and we call them baby Godzillas, because when...
excuse me, sir, you were found in a house alone with unaccompanied reptoids? You want to explain yourself? Take a seat right over there.
Like the lady of the house and the children drew sketches. That's what came to me. They look like little baby Godzillas. And one of these, at least one of these, was playing with the youngest daughter, who was like 4 years old at the time. They would play in that children's bedroom during the day, and the little reptoid was fascinated with the little girl's toys. In particular, one toy that looked like a telephone and that had big keys for numbers and letters, and when you pressed a given key, it emitted a certain tone. So the lady of the house, at odd times during the day, when only her little daughter was home, would hear these tones coming out of the bedroom. And on this one occasion, the little girl came out, and this little girl is now an adult. She has a child now. She said, "Mom, me and my friend, we're hungry," right? And so my friend humored the little girl. She walked back into the bedroom with 2 platters with a slice of pizza on each one. When she walked into the bedroom, she noticed her daughter sitting Indian style on the floor, and alongside of her daughter...
Excuse me, sir, the preferred nomenclature is crisscross applesauce.
...was one of these little immature reptilian beings, and they were playing with that toy, making all these tones. My friend was so startled, she dropped both plates. The reptilian made kind of like a pig kind of squealing sound, and it fled...
Why did it make a pig noise?
...to the closet and disappeared. Now, me and my friend, on another occasion, we were sleeping in that room again. I was in the bed, and he was on the floor, and I began to hear noises coming out of the closet, right?
I like that these guys would spend nights together sleeping in the same room to try and stake out reptilians, but presumably they thought it'd be a little too gay to sleep in the same bed. Hey bro, you want to spend the night together in the hopes that we see a reptilian? Yeah, let's sleep in the same room, it'll be great. But we can't sleep next to each other in the same bed, because that would be gay.
So I sat bolt upright, and I looked around, and I was punched in the face. Bang, bang on this cheek and on this cheek, and I was knocked out, and my cheeks ached for weeks thereafter. And I believe it was the little reptilian. It wasn't the big reptilian or big reptilians. It was one of the little ones, and it was just at the right height to punch me out. So I had a lot of experiences in that place. On another occasion, those reptilians followed me from that place in the high desert of Southern California to my house in San Diego, which is a good 2.5-hour drive. And I had just driven back
You were
from
head to foot, it's fine. We also call that 69.
the high desert, settled down, I was laying in bed reading, and I fell asleep, and
I could have done so many things with my life.
some
Not good things, but you know, things.
time later, I was rolled over in bed, and I was jabbed at the base of my spine with an injection. And as I was laid on my side, I looked over and I saw what I at first thought was a very tall soldier in khaki uniform.
Inquisitive says, I love your tinfoil streams. I watch all your streams, but tinfoil is definitely my favorite. Thank you.
And then I saw something swishing around behind it. Later on, in hindsight, I realized it was a very tall reptilian that just happened to be brownish khaki colored.
What about cheek to cheek, lady in red?
Because when I had time to
Gotta stop saying song lyrics at me, guys.
think about it,
I can't do it.
the thing that was swishing around behind it was his tail. And it was interesting because those reptilians had told my friend, the lady of the house, that, you know, they were going to get back at me basically for always going up there and, you know, like, I guess, annoying them or something. So they followed me back to hundreds of miles, you know, away to San Diego, and they did this to me. And
Toreador says this guy goes to a bar. Can't play this for copyright reasons, but it is the scene from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is pretty good. I'm surprisingly not the biggest fan of Fear and Loathing. I generally like Terry Gilliam. It's just not my favorite movie by him. But I will say the bar scene and all of the wonderful creature designs are great. I'll give you that.
I developed the following day, I was working at ComNav AirPack in communications, and my back was hurting me. I could feel a puncture wound at the base of my spine. I could feel it, an injection mark. And I had a terrific headache, and I was sitting in the main office, and there was an annex, another office off to the left, where the lady who worked in there was on leave or something. So I went in to lay down there just to flatten out my back because my back hurt so much. Had a tremendous headache, was sweating profusely, big time diarrhea, right?
That necessary information for the reptilian conversation.
And what was interesting was I went to an emergency ward, and I said to the lady, the nurse who was checking me out, I said, this is gonna sound crazy, but last night I was rolled over on my side and some soldier, some military looking guy, very tall, like jabbed me at the base of my spine with a hypodermic needle. And she felt it. She said, yes, I see it. You know, I don't doubt you at all. Something happened. And then what was interesting was I called up my friend who was living in the high desert of Southern California, and she told me her husband and her son had all come down with similar symptoms after I had left.
You were sick! Someone was sick! You all spread it to each other! Oh.
I've spoken a couple of times at this conference in St Anne's in Lancashire called Probe International. And always something peculiar goes on there, right? Often on the way there as well, and often on the way back too. Now, when I left to go up there, I went with a friend, and I knew that I had two etheric or ethereal bodyguards. They were reptilian, dressed in armour, and I have a few.
I hope you're having a good one too, Cripple Punk.
This is two that were with me. Big, powerful. So I knew that they were going with me for some reason. They wouldn't have come for no reason. So anyway, I get to the conference, and this guy comes up to us and he said, "Oh, would you and your mate take part in this demonstration that I'm giving on the stage?" I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, what it is transfiguration." Now, transfiguration is, you look at people, but I do it naturally anyway. But
The magic trick. He wants you to volunteer to do a magic trick. You don't need to couch it in other stuff.
Is what he's
Glad you can relax today.
telling people to do. You look at people and you look slightly out of focus to the side of them, and you can see them turn into something else. Okay. And he's doing this thing as a presentation. So he's got this huge white sheet or something.
As a presentation magic show. Did you just feel embarrassed saying it's a magic show? Because you would be saying, I think this magic show was secretly run by reptilians?
On the stage. And he's asked a few people to stand up on the stage in the audience, to see if they can see anything with that person, or if they change into somebody. So I'm up on the stage and people are calling out from the audience, I can see so-and-so with so-and-so, so-and-so. And this woman shouts out, that guy in the white shirt, which is me, that guy in the white shirt, he's got two huge reptilians each side of him. She'd seen him.
Instant stooges. The best thing about picking a conspiracy theorist for an instant stooge is they were a stooge to begin with.
Taking my mum and a couple of friends out to go and see the crafts. I got told basically earlier that day that the crafts would be about, that I could take mum out there to show her, and mum hadn't seen anything up to that point. And it got to a certain point in the night where a crafter came down that low, just basically above Gumtree height, about the size of a house. And mum ran to the car door and she tried to open up the car and she's like, we've got to go home. She freaked her out, she thought they were going to land. So I said, no, you've got to see this stuff, because I know you believe me, but you're definitely going to have something to go by, but I needed her to see this and go, all right, this shit's, this stuff's for real. So we went back into town at that point, because she freaked out. Dropped her off and another friend, and my friend who was staying with me at the time, Carol, who came to visit, we decided we'll go back out. Now at that time at home, she got a thought that we shouldn't be going back out, and so did I, but we didn't say anything to one another, which later on I said, if this happens again, let's tell each other. So we drive back out of town to where we were seeing the crafts, or where I'd told to go, and as soon as I got out of the car, she got out of the car too, and we walked around to the back of the four-wheel drive to get out the equipment. And as soon as I'm turning to pull up the back of the boot, there was one of the Draco reptilians. It was basically behind Carol on an angle. Now, at this time, it was phasing in and out like a distortion, how would you say? It was sort of be like a hologram tuning in and out with static. And it was coming in and out, and straight away I just said to her, get in the car. I got into the car. At that time, this would have only been 10 metres away, and it had horns, it's got the wings.
I wonder if the fading in and out thing is indicative of schizophrenia, because as I've talked about, the way that people talk about visual hallucinations with schizophrenia is usually shadow people, or like people that are there, but they're not fully corporeal, and he is describing this reptilian as being quote-unquote holographic, which could be a way of him, like, rationalizing what he is seeing. If he is seeing what he believes to be effectively a sci-fi alien in his delusion, and it doesn't have substance, because it's, it's a hallucination, but to him, he doesn't know that. To him, it just doesn't look solid. So in his head, he rationalizes, they're aliens, this thing looks like it's not quite physically here, it must be a hologram. You know what I mean? To me, that's indicative of he's describing a hallucination, and he's describing it in terms that make the most sense to him, in this case being holographic, because sci-fi. Huh.
I couldn't tell you what colour, but when they were projected to me, they were yellowish brown colour. Big, like maybe 8-9 foot tall, something like. It was big, but it was only 10 metres away, and in the distance, maybe 150 metres away, is a street light out there. It's the only light in the whole area because it's out of town in a swimming area, like where people take their boats and their kids and have picnics. So because of that, I sort of had a good reference to see it. Even though, you know, usually you can see stuff with the shadow dudes in the dark, you can still get something. But when we hopped in the car at this time, the lights on the interior, on the speedo, on the dashboard, and the outside lights all turned on at different times. They were all, you know, it was like a disco of lights. No reason for it to be happening, and I'm trying to turn on the car, and after some time I just sort of blasted it with love in my mind anyway, and it got a little bit more intense, and then I did it again. Then all of a sudden, like in my mind, it's just like, just start the car, and the car started at that time, so I've reversed out, floored it out of there, and got on my way. Now I haven't got, you know, really messages from the reptilians or anything like that. They seem to have been put in my way, and it's like I'm a beacon for them in some ways, because once I think you're awakened to a certain point, things will come through and they'll pick up on your thoughts. So they're the 3 experiences I've had with reptilians.
One incident that I haven't told many people about was just about 3, maybe 4 years ago. I went to Australia and I went through Heathrow, and almost everybody in this, well, not obviously, but lots of people at Heathrow were shape-shifting. There were reptilians walking around everywhere, right? Now somebody...
That makes me incredibly sad. Again, this is someone who's having some sort of delusional episode and they're attributing it to reptilians. It reminds me, I had a similar experience where, I think I've told this story before. Brains are a very strange thing. I was coming back from Texas from like a conference I had spoken at, and there was an issue with the plane. I stayed up the whole night before because I was supposed to get on the plane very early and head home, so I thought, I'm hanging out with people from the conference, you know, and you know, whatever. So I'll just stay up all night, get the flight in the morning, sleep on the plane. Didn't end up working out that way. The flight got delayed, and I ended up basically being awake for 40 hours straight, which I had never done up until that point, and I wouldn't recommend. I was through the airport, and it looked like people's faces were shifting, similar to how he's describing. The difference is I'm, you know, not schizophrenic, to my knowledge, so I was able to recognize I'm so exhausted, I'm hallucinating, basically. And it's a scary experience, even when you know what it is. So, very sad to hear that he was having this experience and had nothing to attribute it to other than a hostile, alien, you know, force. Very scary.
This can be you decoding something about their aura, but other times it can be you're decoding what is really there rather than what their emotions.
At that point, your brain was equivalent to a drunk brain. It didn't help that I had drank the night before, too, because this was years ago when I still drank. Like, I was up for 40 hours and had drank, and it was not good. I was sober by the time of the face thing. I was just exhausted.
Projecting. And I've had that instance in Macquarie Shopping Centre in Sydney as well, where nearly everybody there is looking like is a reptilian, and full on, and they're much taller than they are as humans, and they're much bigger and much more powerful looking, and big tails and all the rest of it. Full on it is, and but anyway, this Heathrow thing, I got on the plane and they swapped my seat for some reason.
A common experience, if anyone's done air travel regularly, that happens. Sometimes things will get mixed around, sometimes they'll overbook a flight. It happens.
And
we cover Ike yet? He's been in the documentary so far, so we've talked about him a little bit.
I sat down in this other seat.
Just a Peach with $3 tip says, just got back from the ER. I have contact dermatitis. This sucks. I itch a lot. Done winning. I'm so sorry. That sucks. I hope you get less itchy. I'm very sorry.
And I noticed there was an Indian lady in the sari and everything sitting there, and she was looking at me intently like that. But her eyes were really lovely. She was really kind of, you could tell it was really
brutal to listen to. I would agree, but also bear in mind, this is like relatively, how do I explain this? Well, you and I are able to look at this and go, wow, this is a person in need of help. They have psychological issues. They're clearly hallucinating and having delusions. It's very sad. This is a video put together by conspiracy theorists. There's an entire group of people that look at stuff like this and don't see someone in need of help. They see someone who knows the truth. There's a decent portion of people that listen to someone talk like this, and they don't see all the red flags and understand, oh my goodness, this isn't real. They think they're getting the truth, a hidden truth that's being kept from them. That's scary too.
Loving whatever she was doing, you know, but she was doing something. I saw this guy in a seat in front of me just to look along. He rose up and turned into this huge reptilian, right, really aggressive. This air hostess came to me, and this don't happen, does it? She knelt down next to me, she put her hand on my knee, and she was going, "We're going to look after you. Everything will be all right."
Oh, and that's probably a woman who, again, she was the air hostess or whatever, saw that this guy was having an episode and was trying to calm him and give him comfort.
And then this Indian lady, I heard this voice in my mind, and it was definitely coming from her. And she said, "You are a golden child and very special. We are looking after you." And I thought, what's a golden child? I don't know. That's what. That's what she said. Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
On another occasion,
the people who make these documentaries and take advantage of the mentally ill like this and try and like use their delusions to bolster whatever their particular conspiracy theory is are fucked. Fuck these.
Myself and a female MyLab friend were abducted together.
I do want to point out, I think this is the tackiest couch I've ever seen. It's totally off topic, but it's just like bad fake Egyptian hieroglyphic couch. That's so tacky. If I saw that at a thrift store, oh boy.
And we were brought to an underground base in the high desert of Southern California, once again in the Victorville, Barstow area. And we were confronted by what appeared to us to be 3 military people. Again, one of them was taller than the other 2. The one that was the tallest was standing behind a lectern or a podium, and it was quite tall. And it was yelling at my friend and I. We were kind of made to stand at attention several feet away from these 3 beings. They appeared as military personnel with the short hair, etc., but one of them was in the guise of a high-ranking officer, and the high-ranking officer was irate. It was screaming at us, yelling at us, "What are we doing? Like, how do we know so much?" Right? And I knew immediately that this tall being was not a human. I knew that it was really a reptilian, because they often assume the guise of military personnel. Sometimes these abductees in my labs in the underground bases can look at what's supposed to be a military person, but notice that they have vertical pupils, or notice that they don't communicate much, and once in a while they growl or they hiss or they do something to give themselves away. And while this tall general or this tall officer was berating the both of us, I looked at my friend and I said, "This is not a dream, this is real. We're having a real experience here, so remember this," right? And then the being,
That's not the kind of thing you usually say in real life. Am I crazy? In real life, do you ever say, "This is not a dream, this is real, remember this"? That doesn't feel like the kind of thing you say when you're awake. Am I crazy?
assumed supposed military guy just kept yelling at us. Eventually they sent us back. The reptilian symbology, which is common in the folkloric traditions of countless cultures throughout the planet and throughout history, is not so much a metaphor or an archetype as it is a way to describe the existence of these beings, that they really have existed
That
all
happened to you in a dream once. I think it happened to him in a dream once too, which is why I'm bringing it up.
this time, and that they've played a role in the development of civilization, that they've intervened at critical points in human history. So this is why we are constantly bombarded with reptile symbology, serpent symbology, dragons, and so forth. It's not to do with any archetype or metaphor. It has to do with the existence of these beings and the occulted knowledge going way back that these beings are here, and they've been involved with us all along.
One of the important things throughout all of their interaction with humanity was not to be recognized and not to be seen, because humans record in stone. We're very good at that. We create. We're fantastic like that as a race. So they recreate, and the reptilians didn't want that. You will see it occasionally in some of the Sumerian or Assyrian, Babylonian carvings, occasionally. You will also see it in some of the Mayan or Aztec items. What you're much more likely to see are renditions of feline species from the Egyptian times, because they weren't covered by the same protocol. So they weren't...
Sorry.
There was no ban on depicting them, whereas it is...
Okay, so first of all, there are Egyptian depictions of, like, reptilian humanoid, that one of their gods is like a crocodile guy. You know how Egyptian gods often are depicted as like a humanoid with some sort of animal head. That's a thing. But also, notice that he is effectively saying, because there aren't a bunch of reptilian evidence, that's evidence that there were a bunch of reptilians. Do you see how back-assward that is? Like, you can't be like, the fact that there isn't the thing we're looking for is evidence that it was not there because they made them not put it there. It's always suspect, no matter what. Fennikagami with 40 bits says, I remember when one of my coworkers who smokes weed proposed to me the idea that, ever wonder if taking drugs is removing the veil and letting you think more in line with the truth? I pointed out, you have no way of distinguishing your own thoughts from the drug's influence when you're high, so no. Kinda had to concede the point. Yeah, people need to stop thinking drugs are helping their brains. I promise. They're not if they're, like, recreational drugs, most likely. At least not in that way. I understand people use marijuana for, like, pain relief and stuff. I'm not talking about that. It's not bringing you clarity. It's not giving you secrets to the universe.
Is a ban. There still is now a ban on depicting reptilians, and I'll give you absolute proof of that when I did that very nice interview on the Today programme with Holly Willoughby and Schofield, and I did two drawings, one of a mantid and one of a reptile, and I was told point blank we're not allowed to put the reptile up because they were going to have me as a backdrop, them as a backdrop to me. So the stills I've got, which they very kindly sent me, I'm being interviewed with them, and behind me is a picture of the mantid. But originally, Schofield and gang were going to have the mantid and the reptile, and somebody very high up said we're not allowed. They didn't even know what it was called. All they said to me was, we've been told we can't put this one up. So there's a blanket that goes out, and hence, if you think about what your title of this DVD is, because we're coming round to that now, and you think about that chapter in The Greatest Secret that David Icke wrote, which was don't mention the reptiles, and that's a fact, and David is absolutely right, that the system doesn't want to publicize them because they have signed an agreement.
Except the concept of, like, the conspiracy of reptilians has proliferated pop culture already. Like, if that was the goal, the cat's out of the bag, or the reptile's out of the sack, I guess. Like, that's already a cultural touchstone is, oh, leaders and stuff are secretly reptiles. It's a punchline. It's already a thing people know is, like, a concept some people believe, so that doesn't make sense.
Not to publicize them. It's to keep them out. So you can talk about the greys as much as you want. That's not an issue. You can talk about the mantids as much as you want, because they don't manipulate humanity.
How many drugs did Leader take to change his brains into that? That was just gamma radiation. Speaking of which, I think in Godzilla vs. Hulk that came out recently, Godzilla got dosed with gamma radiation and turned into a Hulk Godzilla, which is pretty rad.
Humanity. The reptile race that we're talking about manipulates humanity and has done for thousands of years, and has a covenant with the elite humans who run the world that they will always be in the shadows.
Let me actually see if I can pull up the Hulkzilla, because it's pretty fun. Where is it? There it is.
Godzilla just got.
I can pull up the image. There he is. Now it's Godzilla's turn to smash. Hulkzilla. Pretty good shit. I love comics. They're so fucking stupid.
You're awfully quiet, John. I feel a little underwhelmed for a man who asks questions for a living.
I got a million questions. But let's start with my boss. Is he...
John, what if a man's farts are not his own? What if certain men and women were pliable, manageable, accessible?
Accessible? Manageable? You mean controlled?
There are levels of control, John.
Isn't that illegal? Isn't that immoral?
Depending on the situation. This situation required a little...
This really does feel like a Neil Breen movie. Am I crazy?
Isn't that cheating the public? Isn't that betraying the public's trust? Isn't that cheating the public? Isn't that immoral? Isn't that corrupt? Isn't that immoral?
Isn't that
but then my favorite thing about that is
sold me my house last year.
The mansion and it blows up.
I love Neil.
Show and tell. Others are a little more intrusive.
Afghanistan, thanks for 10 months, says, waiting for a plane to go see my lady. Bought me a ticket for an airplane. Ain't got no time to take a fast train. That feels like that's a song. Thanks for 10 months. I don't know it, though, so I won't sing it.
Behind the scenes, deals were done, but they weren't necessarily beneficial to the populace.
Neil discovered green screens and never used a real set ever again. Yeah, his most recent movie sucked, and I mean, all his movies are bad, but, like, his recent one was bad in a less entertaining way, which is unfortunate. But what are you gonna do, you know?
In modern times, phase one has always been to make you aware of our presence. Over time, we could gain acceptance through the use of literature.
No, not Twisted Pair. The sequel to Twisted Pair. Twisted Pair was okay for a Neil Breen movie. Whatever the... Cade Crossing sucks.
Religion, music, movies.
Reptilian media. You just said it was hidden, but now it's in the media?
If you look at two themes of movies in recent times, and some of them not so recent times, but there's a big theme now. And I don't go to the movies very much because it's all bloody violence and stuff like that most of the time. But if it's for my research, I'll obviously go. One is
Fenikigami says, this is another thing that bothers me about conspiracies. Their entire concept basically requires that they're the first time anyone has ever heard their shit. Just like Christian conversion stories. But like with those stories, way more people have heard of your BS than you think, so obviously the world doesn't work the way you think.
a kind of a reptilian theme that you pick up. And the other one is, you know, many times incorporated into the reptilian theme. And in alien invasions is a well beyond Orwellian society where humans are under total control of a vicious police state and a tiny elite.
As far as movies...
Boy, I wonder why movies in our society often have themes of a working class or underclass of people made up of the majority being controlled by a sinister, selfish group at the top that hoards wealth for themselves while also dehumanizing the majority of the populace. Why is that a common theme? I wonder. How weird. Isn't it crazy how we just come up with these things ex nihilo, just fucking out of nowhere? Wow.
In media being possible leaks to the truth about non-humans, or in particular the reptilians, I think this is certainly possible, and I think that there are several movies that stand out in my mind as being movies that might be leaks. Well, in particular, Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut.
That movie came out 30 years ago! That's your go-to? That movie came out so long ago!
Which I think that he was murdered. He was warned not to publish it, and he said, "To heck with you." And
then what? First of all, it's not publishing; it's releasing. In terms of movies, it got released though. It got released, and it still gets released to this day on like on Blu-ray and 4K. So like, what are you talking about?
And he was killed shortly after the release of the movie. And
like,
also,
if producers wanted to stop the movie, they just wouldn't have produced it.
Rosemary's Baby shows even a reptilian kind of baby at the end of the movie.
Wait, Rosemary's Baby? They're not Roman Polanski? Rosemary's Baby's Roman Polanski, right? Am I crazy?
And
does he think that Stanley Kubrick did Rosemary's Baby and he based a conspiracy off of it, even though that's not even the right director? That's so funny. Yeah, no, Roman Polanski did Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski's a piece of fucking shit.
That those kind of movies.
Yeah, also we never see the baby in Rosemary's Baby.
Seem to be kind of more realistic leaks, if you were. And then you have John Carpenter's They Live and The Thing, and
They Live is about capitalism.
Aliens, which
it's about like 1980s Reaganomics, Margaret Thatcherism, like it's about that.
I think are all.
And it's not even like thinly veiled, it's incredibly in your face about it.
Possible relevant information or visions, you might say, inspirations for what's really happening.
I think if you look at John Carpenter, the creator of They Live, if you look at his...
Oh, you dickbag. What a I love They Live. I really think it's a fun movie with a poignant message that was true then and is true now. I think it's a fun movie. But holy shit, it's about capitalism. It's not even... They don't hide it. The idea that people take this movie literally and think there are literally aliens, it just makes me want to bash my head in. Like, I just want to take a hammer. Just smash it.
Movie making history, which includes Satanism and horror and...
Satanism is not in that movie even a little bit. What the fuck are you talking about? Satan isn't mentioned once in that fucking movie. What are you talking about? Altered Undying says it's also Eyes Wide Shut is based on a book, and the author didn't die until like 7-9 years after the short story was published. It's called The Dream Story. Dream.
What have you? This guy has at least some knowledge of what's happening. And I had to laugh. I said this in a book once, years ago, and someone wrote to John Carpenter saying what I'd said. And he wrote back to him, I saw the letter, saying, no, it wasn't. The aliens, inside the people, I was symbolizing the Republicans. And you go, yeah, John, all right, yeah, okay.
They look good, I've avoided it. because of Piper. I didn't think it'd be serious. I mean, it's a campy, silly, like, 80s action movie in a lot of ways, but it does have a strong, solid, like, class-conscious moral. It's enjoyable. I have a lot of fun with it.
You were, yeah. I mean, anyone who's seen They Live will laugh at that.
And I watched They
No, they won't! That's the fucking movie! What are you talking about? Have you seen the goddamn movie? Literally, in the movie, they show Reagan as a fucking alien mutant. Yeah, here's where they show Reagan. Hold on. Oh wait, no, they don't actually show the clip, I don't think, in this. Where did it go? It's somewhere in this clip, in the montage. He ends up in a store, and they show the president, and it is implied to be Reagan, even though you don't see him under the thing. Okay, this doesn't have that clip either, but it's in the movie. Sorry, I don't have immediate access to that right now. Oopsie.
Live, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, on the internet, on YouTube.
If They Live got a sequel, it would feature a plot of aliens getting elected into government without disguises because they've convinced gullible humans they're totally on their side. That's actually not a, like, I don't think they need to make a sequel to They Live, but that's not a bad pitch, honestly. And the aliens have convinced the idiot humans that actually the other humans are the problem. Yeah, okay, I could see that.
Watched it on there. Now that is so real. What I found in life is that very often the things that are kind of I find distressing or are distressing for me at the time, I don't watch. I don't know why, but I don't watch. People say, "Oh, you should watch this," and I don't. And then it comes to a point where I feel that, yeah, okay, I'll watch that or I'll read that, and I will. And then I know why it was I didn't watch it before. I wasn't ready to sort of integrate that into where I was at the time. But V and They Live are so accurate. So accurate.
They Live. It's classic. And that time back too, where you have a small number of people who are actually not what they seem. They look human to people in everyday life, but when the guy put the sunglasses on that allowed him to decode reality on
The sunglasses are class consciousness, you fucking idiot! The complete lack of ability to understand symbolism is so
level,
frustrating.
that was the symbolism of it. He saw that they actually, behind the human form, they weren't human at all. And they were the people in power. They were the bankers. They were the politicians. They were the president. They were some of the police.
Some of those that work forces are the same that are reptoids. Something like that.
Also, when he put the glasses on that subliminal level, he could see all the subliminal messages all around him, telling him to stay asleep, to not question, to obey authority. And it was a movie, it was kind of a B movie, wasn't it? A kind of, most people would never have heard of, and yet it was...
It's a pretty big cult movie these days. John Carpenter's career wasn't very successful contemporaneously when his movies came out. A lot of them become popular in hindsight and become cult films. You found the scene? Thank you, Ashley. Yeah, there it is in the supermarket.
Faith in our leaders. We're optimistic as to what becomes of it all. It really boils down to our ability to accept. We don't...
Did they not have... I thought it was more clearly Reagan than that. I guess maybe I'm wrong. I thought there was a scene where it was much more clearly Reagan.
Need pessimism.
Oh no, that is supposed to be Reagan with the hair.
There are no limits.
It's a literal Reagan speech. That makes sense.
It would be something like this. Our nation, our idea.
Anyway, I'd recommend it. I'm here to kick ass and chew bubble gum. I'm all out of bubble gum. From that movie, if you don't know. Duke Nukem stole it.
Way ahead of its time in portraying the world that we're actually living in.
the Super Mario Brothers. If anyone gets a chance to see that movie, it's
oh fuck, I love that movie. I have the 4K of that movie. I have the Ultimate Deluxe Limited Edition box set of that movie. Don't use it to bolster your conspiracy theories.
amazing. In the old video store days, you would find this movie in the children's section. The story starts out with a
I didn't find it in the children's section as a kid. It was in the sci-fi section, I think.
celestially driven cataclysm. An asteroid comes and wipes out the dinosaurs, and through some kind of weird kind of alchemical process,
sci-fi,
an alternate reality is created where the survivors of the reptile survivors of the surface went underground into an alternate dimension.
Okay, they didn't go underground. Again, they were like divided into a separate dimension. You just said that. It's in the movie.
And they became the rulers, and they were shapeshifters. They would shapeshift between human and reptilian.
No. Koopa could do that at the end, I think, because he had something that would do that to him, to sort of devolve him, but that wasn't an innate thing that they had. He had a devolving machine. Again, don't talk about the movie if you haven't watched it recently and don't even remember the goddamn plot.
The head reptile was Dennis Hopper, if you've ever seen that movie.
Koopa.
And it was another dimension that was parallel to our dimension. And it had to do with bloodlines, it had to do with all kinds of stuff. And of course,
the only thing that had to do with bloodlines was the fact that Princess Peach is the princess and the rightful ruler to the kingdom. You know, like Super Mario Brothers. So when he says bloodlines, he literally just means, oh, sorry, actually Daisy. I forget, in the movie they make it Daisy instead of Peach. But Daisy is the princess or some shit.
the protagonist, Luigi and
Wish the Mario movie got a sequel. Me too.
Mario, you know, they defeat the reptilians, right?
Thanks, Mystic Dragon. I hope your night's going well, too.
Very interesting story.
When I was growing up in the 70s, a TV show that I really loved was Land of the Lost.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. Irwin Allen's Land of the Lost with the fucking reptile people whose name I'm blanking on right now, but that's a good show. I have Nolan Holly on something adventure.
It involved a pocket universe where dinosaurs lived, and
I thought they just went back in time.
Advanced beings who turned out
Sleestack, thank you.
To be the ancestors of these.
Wait, that wasn't Irwin Allen? Who did do Land of the Lost? Let me look. Not the film. Oh, Sid and Marty Krofft! Yeah, I fucked that up.
These primitive Sleestacks had built these pylons, which were devices used for interdimensional travel and time travel, as well as such things as regulating the weather in the Land of the Lost. But
remember when they changed the cast of Land of the Lost and they were like the same people, but not quite the same people? The fuck was that about?
The Sleestacks, which the advanced beings, they called them the Altrusians, eventually evolved into were like barbaric, kind of vaguely reptilian beings that lived underground.
There were smart Sleestacks too. I remember the one where they revealed that the Sleestacks were intelligent and then devolved, and the one intelligent one was like super pissed off about it.
They were very tall and menacing, but there are some definite parallels between the storylines in Land of the Lost and the research on reptilians living underground and being able to travel through portals and so forth.
Last year, the movie came out, Ender's Game. Wonderful story about how
Ender's Game was written by a real piece of shit.
We're assuming that these inhuman insectoid ETs are somehow hostile and dangerous to us just because we've got this mindset of fighting everything out there that moves, and actually they're not. This is not what they're trying to do at all. And again, it takes a little kid to have the wisdom to actually discern what's really happening here.
Another show that I'm fascinated with is Thundercats. I've only watched a few episodes of that, but again, it deals with these feline aliens that are battling the reptilians, and all these different races allied with the reptilians. There's canine beings, there's wolf beings, there's bird.
What does Mumra have to do with this conspiracy?
Bird beings. Some are aligned on one side or the other, and some want to be neutral. And many of these different ET races.
I like that he saw like 2 episodes of Thundercats and was like, yeah, this shit's important. I better bring this up in the documentary.
Are depicted in this Thundercats cartoon.
Thundercats.
I wish I'd seen it when I was younger. Another show is V, the original V, that shows these human-looking aliens.
All I'm learning from Conspiracies lately is apparently I need to watch V because alien conspiracy theorists bring it up a lot.
Coming in huge craft, but in reality, they're reptilians, and they eventually can gain control of politics.
I watched the reboot or remake of V when it was new.
The media and everything else, and then a small band of resistance fighters develops, led by a woman. And there's a lot of metaphorical, metaphysical truth behind that, because some of the best spiritual warriors...
Has the human resistance gone woke?
I've found are women. They're heart-centered.
They're watching too much Saturday morning kids TV? No, there's no such thing as too much Saturday morning kids TV. They're just crazy.
They have all these abilities. They don't operate...
I say that as someone within arm's reach of the entire series of The Fairly Odd Parents. Like 30 after-school specials. Don't blame media. Blame crackpots.
From a place of ego, and they don't need accolades, they don't need fame or fortune. They tend to operate. The real players tend to operate on their own, under the radar, and many of them are women. So when I see this TV show V, and it's led by a woman scientist or something, if my memory serves, that really resonated with me.
I'm gonna make a call now and say he's into femdom. I'm just getting the vibe. The amount he's randomly bringing up women in positions of power makes me think he's into femdom, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I want to just put that call out there.
You've got to start immediately with 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's how you'd start, and then you would do the original Star Trek, because Gene Roddenberry not only went out and found contactees, but he actually joined a circle of people who were channeling other entities. So these people, either as directors or producers, either have direct knowledge, or more likely it's a give and take with the security services. The security service will say, okay, you've done us a favor, here's an idea. It's not really an idea, it's something they know, but they're to run with the idea. Where it's become insidious, and that's why I'm a bit unwilling to help you out with this too much, is because they will use...
Careful, Phoenix, he might be into it.
The media to play out an agenda for them, to test its reaction on the audience. And the first time that occurred was in 1938. Was it 38, when Orson Welles did his War of the Worlds? What people don't know was that was all orchestrated to early sort of focus groups to feed back on what the situation was. Now, it actually wasn't panic, as the media was told. There was only a small pocket of panic, but they wanted to create panic, so that's why all the mainstream media said there was mass panic, because that was the argument. That's why we're not going to go public with what's happening.
Sorry, I'm trying to see when Flash Gordon started, because he's talking like the idea of aliens was like created by Orwell. When was the original Flash Gordon serials? Because like Orson Welles did not invent the concept of alien invaders, did he? H.G. Wells did, though, you dumb bitch. Based off of fucking like H.G. Wells. Why don't you know that, you stupid slut? Oh, sorry, my bad.
What is happening?
Most of my inner monologue is insulting myself for things I should remember.
I would suggest is that subconsciously, because there are so many with the same theme, it's laughable. Subconsciously, the human mind is being made familiar with something that if it wasn't made familiar with subconsciously in this way, when it is revealed, people would be in a massive, massive state of shock, whereas they're bringing it in slowly. So what they're doing is that on one level, they are preparing people to be familiar with and therefore be far more likely to accept without resistance the very Orwellian society that's being brought in by these reptilian hybrid bloodlines, because this archontic force has been working to manipulate human society over these, what we call in our version of time, thousands of years, to reach this point where they can take the whole thing over and turn humans into a slave race. Now, this is interesting, given what I've talked about in terms of this archontic reptilian force cannot create itself. It has to piggyback that which is already created. It cannot create the Orwellian society. It has to manipulate us to do it.
If aliens were controlling us, they could make us all fat, dumb, and happy easily. Hey, I'm at 2 or 3 of those. That's not bad.
They have to let us know what they're doing.
Maybe there's something about this
to do before they do it. It's kind of like a rule of the game from their point of view. And if you see it this way, it gets them off the karmic hook. What I mean by that is that if I were to tell you, the viewer watching this now, that I intended to burgle their house tonight, and I was going to do it by climbing in this window at 2 o'clock in the morning, and this is what I was going to go and steal. And if I told them that, and they didn't believe me, and they took no action, and I went and did it anyway, then I would be off the karmic hook, because it's their fault for not securing the window latch. It's their fault for not standing there with a gun waiting for me to come. It's their fault for not taking me seriously. It's like, well, I told you, and it happened, so now the responsibility is yours, not mine.
Media nowadays, major Hollywood films, are used to push an ideal which is either part of a programming agenda or it's an agenda to test out what the reaction is on the public.
Wow, it's great that you cover all your bases there, so anything that ever happens, you can just blame on either of those things.
Any decent producer in Hollywood who's doing a science fiction or science fantasy film now will be heavily involved with the secret government or the secret service, whatever we want to call them, for a give and take, an exchange of ideas. If you look at Stanley Kubrick,
I don't think he knows what the Secret Service is.
Made his own deal that he could make as many films as he wanted and have oversight over it, providing he never told the truth about the supposed moon landings. And as soon as he broke that agreement, they killed him. So right through history from Hollywood, Hollywood is an integral arm of manipulation, mind control, and just focus grouping.
Movie
just testing.
Krull was totally a secret message. I have Krull! Where's my copy of Krull? Where are you, Krull? There's Krull. I proved it. I have a movie no one was thinking about but me and Ashley. We did it.
So anyone who has an interest will look at a film and say, well, I look at that, look at that.
I think someone has made an effort to enlighten the people so they really know what's going on, whether it's done for malign in-your-face purposes or it's done, at least some of it is done, to wake people up. Who knows?
What was Morbius trying to tell us? Probably that it's Morbin time.
I do know that this process is ongoing.
Or that scene where Matt Smith was like, have sex, but poop my pants a dance, poop my pants a dance. That was deep.
There are a whole bunch of different possible agendas going on with the sowing of these concepts in Hollywood. But to condense everything down into one short sentence, this is no accident. It's certainly planned.
So what? This is an invasion. Take over the planet, kill everyone. Then what?
If it was up to certain members of our community, yes. But it's a little more complicated than that, John. Plus, we've been there, done that. Wasn't pretty. I look at it more as a occupation. I know you guys are fond of that.
How is this possible? I mean, what about the government?
What about the government? Freyline says, I'm pretty sure the Germ Growers by Robert Potter was before the War of the Worlds. It's not very good. I'm not familiar.
What about our military?
What about 'em? They work for us, John. We run the show. It's all an illusion. Nothing you experience here is real. Nothing. None of it. At least not in the way you think it is. Oh, it's a work of genius, John. Even after all this time, and we're talking a lot of time, a millennia, the complexity of the plan still impresses the hell out of me. Yeah.
Who wrote this script? Not a writer. That, narrows it down. No! Writer cliche! Do not bring up... Oh, our plan is like chess. We're playing 5D chess. It's like a chess game. No! Screenplay 101. Don't assume you're deep by bringing up chess or like in some adversarial relationship. Don't relate it to chess. It's the most cliche, burnt out, beat up, fucking cliche. Do not use that. You're not even playing.
You're not even in the game.
Oh, my mind is blown. Oh. Where did we go? Where did we come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
That's a good question.
Oh, that was so shit. That was fun. That was truly beautiful. Thank you all for watching that with me. That was a lot. I also saved this channel. This channel has 3 years worth of material, by the way. They have a lot. So we will probably be revisiting some of their content sometime soon. Alright, so like I said, tomorrow will be the patron and YouTube member only stream. So we will be doing a regular stream tomorrow where everyone can join, and then after we'll be doing the patron and YouTube member stream. So that'll be fun. I'm not sure what we'll be doing tomorrow. Maybe Sovereign Citizens. There are some new Sobsit stuff that's come out. But yeah, like I said, I have the next like 9 days off of work. So Monday I do have some doctor appointment stuff I have to do, so no streaming Monday. But other than that, we're going to be doing streams pretty much every day. It'll be fun, and we'll do some longer streams and stuff. Don't forget, Sunday we're doing our 420 tinfoil, which is going to be 6 hours of tinfoil and Hannah inebriated on THC. So if that sounds enjoyable and you want to spend your 420 with me, feel free to do so. Does anyone have any recommendations for a raid they would like? we've been to the Chud mines yet. We haven't done Chud Watch in a while. I really, really would like to at some point, but... Okay, if Logan's online, yeah, we'll raid Logan. Or Kevin. I always do that. I always want to call him Logan. I don't know why. It's because it's the most prominent thing in his, like, actual channel name. I always want to just call him Logan. Alright, enjoy your time with Kevin. Alright. Adios, everyone! I will see you soon. Have a great night. And sleep tight. Don't let the reptilians get you, unless you're into that. And then consent is key. Alright, bye everyone!